Mad research. I've been in the stew thinking about Metazoo. Bars, by the way. Leave me alone, man. That's crazy. It can't touch me. But, dude, I've been just on a personal kind of like expedition to discover everything about Metazoo and what it's become up until now. I have a couple people in chat already, so I'm very curious. Has anybody heard of Metazoo, the trading card game Metazoo? What do you know about it? I'm genuinely curious. While you guys tell me what you know about it, and before I start to tell you everything about it, on to the discussion today, ladies and gentlemen. Why am I talking about Metazoo, right? There's a lot of people that don't know what Metazoo is. I'll discuss it, and we'll get into it. We'll get into a lot of the drama that's going around today, because actually, from what I found out, is there is some hot drama going on as early as last week. And the Metazoo trading card game entire community is collapsing within itself. But objectively, Metazoo is doing just fine. How is that? What's the deal with Metazoo? Let's talk about it for a bit. So for anybody that doesn't know, Metazoo... Well, actually, yeah, I'll talk about why I'm talking about Metazoo first before I get into it. So, I don't know. What's first, right? It's either I talk about what... we'll talk about what Metazoo is. I'll give some... a little bit of... background to it. So for anybody that doesn't know what Metazoo is a trading card game that was ran as a Kickstarter early on in 2020 at the crux of COVID-19. It is the brainchild of Michael Waddell, who is an ex-Goldman Sachs employee, an ex-NASA employee. The man has done it all. Very intelligent guy. But Metazoo has been his baby that he has put together throughout COVID-19. Not Steve123. Thanks for the prime, bro. Appreciate you, King. This was originally a Kickstarter thing, and as you can see, there's a lot of charm in it done by Michael. He has a big vision for it. A card game that is meant to be played by everybody. And that takes certain different aspects that you normally wouldn't see in trading card games, brings them back, and then also introduces new mechanics to the game. One of the main gimmicks of Metazoo card game is that it's all tied with cryptids. Cryptids are like things like Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Loch Ness Monster, all these, I don't want to say urban legends. I don't think that's the right word. Cryptid is genuinely the right word. But for anybody that didn't know what a cryptid was, there's kind of your thing is. That's what they built their brand upon, and that's what they've started with their first block, which is Cryptid Nation. Their plan is to release 5 different booster sets in this first block based on cryptids from North America, and that's the entire Cryptid Nation block that they have around. They have 5 sets into it. There are currently 4 releases into it. They're on the heels of releasing their 4th booster set, which is UFO, which I'm assuming is going to go with things with outer space probably. But yeah, there was a lot. If you look at simply the Kickstarter in an isolated scenario, this was a success by Michael's part. The pledging did not go more than 18,000. I'm hoping to find it. Hold on. Sorry. Here it is. 18,000 out of a 10,000 gold, almost doubling it. Yo, Trevor, my man. See you next week, cutie. Always, bro. Always. Super stoked. So, the Kickstarter was a success with $18,000 pledged out of a $10,000. It looked like Metazoo was going to finally see fruition. It was going to all this work that Mr. Michael put in was going to finally see the light of day. Some of the cool things about Metazoo that you would normally not see in other card games is the art style is very unique. A lot of people would say it's very reminiscent of the old school Pokemon trading card game. Even somebody like MBT, Mono Blue Tron, has said he is a fan of the artwork. Reminds him a lot of like the grassroots of Pokemon and stuff like that, Iconic artwork. Granted, it's not an IP that anybody recognizes, but we'll get into that later, you know what? But another big aspect of Metazoo that no other card game has really dared to dredge through a competitive format is fourth wall effects. A fourth wall effect, for anybody that doesn't know, is an effect printed on a card that interacts with the area around you. So similar how all of these urban legends or cryptids are supposed to be amongst us. You're supposed to immerse yourself in the Metazoo universe by using your surroundings to give your deck an edge where your opponent won. There's effects like, if it's nighttime, a card will get a certain boost that it wouldn't have normally before. There's a card where, if it's Christmas time, they had a whole Christmas bonus pack, where if it's the Christmas time, December, I think specifically, cards would get different effects during December. If it is snowing, cards would get different effects, you know, if it's snowing outside. There's even things like if there's a fallen tree in an eyesight distance, different cards will get different effects. Some people like that idea, but obviously it raises a lot of red flags when you're looking at it at a competitive standpoint. But you have to remember, what exactly is Metazoo built for? Who is buying Metazoo? Who is Metazoo printed for? Michael Waddell talks about it being printed for kids, you know? It's a fun game to play. The cards are wacky. The artwork is off the wall. Some people like it, some people don't. But it's supposed to be fun, man. You're supposed to be laugh as you know, figure out all the interactions with your cards, sitting down, having a good time. Kids don't play card games. Shut up! I'll talk about it! Leave me alone, bro. Goodness gracious. So the fourth wall effects were a lot of contingency with a lot of people. The vision of a meta around Metazoo, you know, the first 4 letters of it, didn't seem like it would be really something plausible if you're introducing fourth wall effects as a main core mechanic of the game. This is something that is going to happen throughout the rest of the sets, and it has been deemed so. So obviously, me coming from it, I actually followed Metazoo from the very start of its release and its kind of debut here. I followed it from the start here, and it had this meteoric rise to fame. Something unprecedented in the trading card game community. Metazoo exploded on a level that has never been seen before. Why did it explode? Well, there was a lot of aspects of this game that the creator, Michael Waddell, wanted to maintain. A lot of things that he grew up on as a kid. You can see, actually, well, here, we're going to look at the cards and everything, too. We'll talk about this in a minute. This guy here, Kodak, he was one of the first people that I can find that got his hands on Metazoo product, and one of the first Metazoo partners to actually bring product into people's hands from himself, as well as, you know, advertise it to people to try to get people to play. So, Kodak talks about the Metazoo card game back in 2021. This is right at the release of the Kickstarter, as Nightfall, which is their second set, is hitting the printers. And you could just look. We're not going to get too in the weeds with the videos themselves. If you want to get a look at some of the cards here, here's what they kind of look like. I got a picture here of them. The Loveland Frogman. As you can see, the artwork is like, it's kind. You know what? I can see where a lot of people would like it. I'm not the biggest fan of it, bro, but I can see where a lot of people would like it, you know? This old school kind of vibe with the Pokemon and stuff like that. But there's a lot of different things about it. If you can look at this picture here, it's probably a better look because I'm coloring it there. There's a lot going on, bro. There's a lot going on. One of the big things that's a turnoff for me is the red border of the card. This is something that actually wasn't in the original print run of Metazoo. Originally, they were going to be printed on black borders. That is actually where you see, did I close the Kickstarter? I'm a weenie. Hold on, bro. Oh my God. Don't worry about it, chat. We'll be good. Right. The black borders were originally printed for these sample cards. Are you kidding me? They were originally printed for these sample cards here. I promise this is relevant. The black borders were printed for these cards here, and all these sample cards were given out to backers in a quantity of 100 each. They were only printed with 100 each of these sample cards here to be given. So, you know, there's a very finite amount of these cards that were only given to backers of the game. Why a red border, you ask? They went with the red border for a couple different reasons. They went with the red border. It was first introduced in their Christmas set as a Christmas exclusive thing. I think Michael then realized he really, really was a fan of the red border. And the red border is supposed to reminisce of something similar to Pokemon, which if you look at the Pokemon borders, they're yellow. And of course, like, I think it ties in with Pokemon because of the IP tied around Pokemon and everything. And it's supposed to appeal to a more younger audience and everything. You know, this very vibrant color around it is supposed to contrast with all these cryptids. But I think it's a kind of a weird balance because then you get things like literally Killer Clown, or there's some really creepy artworks that just do not mix with the colorful aspect of the border. That's all personal opinion, though. That's besides the point. The main thing that I want to get you guys from this video is it was promising. You know, the main thing that Kodak talks about is that he got into Metazoo before the meteoric rise in prices and everything. The entire Metazoo market had exploded essentially overnight. where these cards that were exclusively released in the Kickstarter boxes or these sample cards reached ridiculous values, something that you had never seen in a card game that was released before. You try to think of card games like if you would have gotten in the ground floor of Yu-Gi-Oh, man. Say, for instance, you start playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Legend of Blue Eyes, and you open an LOB pack. You could pull Blue Eyes White Dragon or any of those iconic cards, but out the gate, the very first set of Yu-Gi-Oh!, no one expected those cards to be worth thousands of dollars years down the line. So what was attracting these insane prices? You have Kickstarter cards that are only released in the sample cards selling for thousands of dollars. The grading company has, this is back when COVID just hit too, so grading trading cards was outrageous. You have cards being sent in to come back just 10s because they're brand new cards. But it just blew up overnight. You have cards being sold for thousands of dollars, and they're all rare because they're only contained in this Kickstarter product. But a starry-eyed Kodak here, man, you can tell he is very into the idea of the game. He's into the cryptids. He's into the mechanics and stuff like that. Even if it's a fourth wall thing, he expresses his concerns with it being competitive. But as for an IP and everything around it, Kodak, with 50,000 viewers, this guy's very important. I promise it comes in later. Big fan. He likes it a lot. I actually kind of like the artwork of Mothman here. I think this looks kind of sick. But he does concede a few things, and that is the game is confusing. There's a lot going on. He spends an entire segment explaining how the game works. I'm going to try my best in a short amount of time from the videos that I've watched to explain some of the mechanics to you guys. So when you look at a Metazoo card, you have a couple different aspects of it. You have its hit points up here. You have their attacks down here. Any of the effects are printed on the card as well. Some of the things that end up being too much, though, is a lot of the status symbols and a lot of the things to keep track of the game. Anybody that has played Pokemon before knows about resistance effects and knows about all the different statuses that happen on a card, you can put poison on a card to say it's poison. I think you flip a card in some way to show that it's burned. That is just saying that every turn something is happening to the card. There are 10, he says. I think there might be
status ailments in the vein of Pokemon.
Bam, these are right here, the status ailments.
Several can be applied not only to beasties, but to players as well. Burn in particular is pretty nasty, as it inflicts 20 damage every time a beastie is fatigued to attack or use an ability, and if you burn a player, that happens every time they do that. However, with these, I have to talk a bit about the jank.
He gets talking about the fourth element walls, but the big thing about the status symbols is there's too many of them. Pokemon does a good job of keeping it short by having only 4 different status ailments, and they're all pretty recognizable. Poison and burn take counters. Sleep is turning to the left. Thank you, Tinkai. Sleep, you turn the card to the left, you rotate it, and then paralysis is turning it upside down. But that's not a lot to keep track of. It's all pretty self-forward. However, the status effects in Metazoo right off the bat are all designated by these little chip cards, like the poison and the burn. I think there's 8 or 10 of them. There's way too many of them, and also on top of that, there's nothing that tells you immediately what they do. You have to research every single one of them, and imagine you get to a point where you have a card having 5 status ailments. And a person that immediately just hops into the game isn't going to know what these different symbols do, but with any other card game, you're going to learn, right? That's the hope. So the status ailments, there's a lot of them to pick up and understand, and they're all designated by these little markers here. It ends up being a lot to keep track of, and it ends up being a homework assignment. On top of that, not only that, but if you look at the anatomy of the card here, that one's not a good one. Some of the cards have different elements tied to them, and they have, go figure, a weakness to it as well, like Pokemon would. There's some cards that have these different symbols that would say they're an attribute, right? And there's an entire, if you think of Pokemon and all the weaknesses with that too, they're written on the card. They tell you, you have a 2-timed weakness to water if you're a fire monster or something like that. It makes sense. However, Metazoo doesn't do that. They have the same kind of resistance mechanic with different attributes, but it is written nowhere on the card. If you didn't know that there was a resistance or something like that, or you didn't know the roadmap by heart for it, you would never know. It's a lot to keep track of. What I'm trying to say is it's complicated. There's a lot of different things to keep in mind. That's all the fourth wall effects happening in the game, the damage resistance, the status ailments, even the names of the mechanics are a little bit different. Drawing a card is called bookmarking or something like that. The terminology is out of whack too. It becomes a very a lot to handle right away, which is a lot of people, they were not a big fan of it. Now, the thing is about Michael Waddell is he partnered with a lot of people, some people right off the bat, to help promote his game. A lot of the promotion came from after the release of his Kickstarter. You know, his humble Kickstarter with $18,000, just almost barely double his original amount, has just exploded. And he got so many people involved on the process of it to help raise the awareness of the Metazoo brand. One of the people that he got on top of it was Alpha Investments, otherwise known as Rudy, man. Alpha Investments, for people who don't know, is a Magic the Gathering channel that is primarily focused around long-term investments in Magic the Gathering product, whether that be sealed product, mainly sealed product, or any of the ABU cards that are involved on the reserve list. Rudy, who he's pretty infamous to some people. I don't mind him. I personally like him. But he has made his business on collecting these boxes and continuing to build a position for himself as the authoritative figure of Magic the Gathering collecting. He has an entire warehouse of millions and millions of dollars of Magic products sealed up because he sees long-term it has value. And who wouldn't see that, you know? Magic the Gathering, the first trading card game released to the public, blazed boundaries, you know, with their collecting as well as, you know, mechanics and everything like that, essentially birthing every other card game after it. It is an IP that is loved by everybody and is sure to live decades into the future. So it's a safe investment for Rudy. Rudy got involved super early with Metazoo.
I'm getting bombarded with people asking me, Rudy, Metazoo, are you going to be a part of it? What's going on? Well, so the company has reached out to me. I've accepted this care package that they sent me from the company. And I'm going to be researching it. I know nothing about this so far. The reason I decided to actually accept a care package and take a look at it is because the sheer volume of people that have been asking me about my opinion of this product. Hey, look, they even got their own logo on the outer seal. Nice little... And wow.
Yeah, so this is the first video that Alpha Investments Rudy ever posted on Metazoo. And a lot of people will attribute this to the explosion of the entire secondary market. I don't think so. I do think he plays an important role in deciding who comes into your card game and who your primary audience is. The main thing that I want you to take away from this is that although Rudy picked up this care package from, assumably, Mr. Waddell, the original Metazoo people, to advertise the game, he eventually gets partnered with Metazoo Games. And a partnership with Alpha Investments is not anything new. A prior card game, Flesh and Blood, has already done it with specific promo cards and everything like that. However, I think when you give Alpha Investments Rudy into your company like that as a strict partnership, you attract a very particular type of customer. The people that think similar to Rudy. And that is, what is the long-term value of my Metazoo product? Is this going to stand the test of times? Can I be like Rudy? Can I collect pallets of Metazoo? And then eventually, years down the line, I'll be able to make money. You have this mentality of people on a collector side, which there isn't anything bad to collecting a game. You know, collecting, everybody collects something. Sure. But when you bring in this type of mentality to people, it is directly opposite of how you want to grow a company based on the mechanics. If you're so gung-ho about the game, not opening the product is the exact opposite of what you want. Mike Waddell partners with Rudy to bring the game to a wider audience and bring the collectible side of it to a wider audience too. What makes the game collectible though? You know, I think a lot of people might be asking, Metazoo, Metapoo, the cards don't look good. What makes it collectible? Something that is, what's my next video here? This is a really good video that I'll go over with you guys later. Something about the Metazoo that makes it really good for collecting is they've brought back things from older trading card games that have recently rotated out. Something that I've heard a lot of people talk about is the first edition stamp. Oh my goodness, first edition's back, bro. You kidding me? So Metazoo made it a point to bring back first edition prints of boxes, similar to that of Flesh and Blood, who recently did it last year. A lot of these startup companies want to start with first edition to give the boxes a set limit of scarcity. If I tell you there are 100, there actually isn't 100,000. I think there's 25,000 Metazoo Cryptid Nation first edition boxes. You know there's a finite amount out there. If you hold one, you know you are one of only 25,000 to hold it. That's a special thing for a lot of people, you know, to hold a finite amount of stuff. or to hold something with a finite amount of product out there. It's a very big pull for a lot of people, and it makes a lot for a lot of product to sell pretty quickly too. But even if we look at Yu-Gi-Oh today and all these other card games that come up with this first edition printing, even though it's something that us as Yu-Gi-Oh players especially are so fond of back in the day, picking up these, especially me, picking up these first edition collectibles that are, in your heart, there's a finite amount of them, much more than a finite than that of the unlimited printings. But if we've known anything, Yu-Gi-Oh has completely rotated out the first edition. It's still around on all the cards today, but it's arbitrary. First edition doesn't mean anything anymore. There's no unlimited prints. They don't exist anymore for Yu-Gi-Oh! So it's pretty much just there for every card. Every card's a first edition. It's not special. So why does cutting first edition make sense? It's because you run into a problem that Metazoo is facing currently as we speak. And that is nobody wants to have cards that are worth nothing. And that's exactly what the second printing of Cryptid Nation has cost. Cryptid Nation has released its second wave, and its second wave involves still a finite number of 100,000 booster boxes only of Cryptid Nation Wave 2. But if you go to sellers now, the boxes don't sell. People are sitting on toxic inventory that they cannot get rid of. Partners from the original conception of the game that saw its ridiculous rise and everything are now left with product that they can't unhand. And nobody wants product that's going to sit there and collect dust. So you have the problem with all these first edition boxes. Recently, actually, Flesh and Blood, I should say, has done the same thing, where they've noticed after their first, year or two of production, the first edition stamp does not work. You attract a certain amount of people that collect just the first edition cards but don't enjoy the game, and it becomes very difficult to be able to get the cards in people's hands or have cards that retain value. So Flesh and Blood, coming forward with the next year, I think they're rotating out the first edition. Everything is not going to have a first edition print. So every card game in TCG has realized that first edition doesn't work. However, Metazoo wants to bring it back specifically for the collectability aspect, right? They want people to to hold something that's a finite amount. I get that. It's awesome. It's cool and everything. Right. So where does this become a problem? Rudy wants to collect the product and hold it. That's what Rudy does. And that's okay. Mike Waddell even says, if you want to collect the game, he wants that to be a very important aspect. That's okay. If you want to hoard product, that's okay. That's your prerogative. But it becomes a very stark contrast of the bright-eyed Michael Waddell that we see back in the day, creating a lovely IP based off of all these cryptids based around the world and how it actually turns out. This is a interview that I really like. It's something that I just stumbled upon, actually. They have a website. Bless this person's soul, by the way. Imagine being so involved with Metazoo that you create this website. This is Metazoo HQ. It seems like it's run by just somebody in their own time, but it has everything here, man. All the cards are put into a database. Products are listed. There was actually this really super helpful tool that I was using, and it's a timeline based on all the, we'll get there, the NFTs, don't worry. It's a timeline showing how Metazoo has progressed over the years and all the different releases and stuff they've had. Very helpful resource that I was using when I was doing this. Right, where was I? So I found this interview here. This interview takes place right at the release of their Kickstart. This is right after, I think, Rudy got a hold of the stuff. And this is like right in that between of before Nightfall, but after the huge success of the Kickstarter. Everyone is still trying to figure out, what's the deal? Why did this thing explode? What's going on? So this guy here, Kitchen Table TCG, he's not anything big. 7.5k subscribers. This is a 3k interview for a game that, by the way, is blazing right now. He only got 3k people to talk about it. But this is a really good interview. Late night Kitchen Table TCG goes over with Mike Waddell.
So I view this as kind of
this is a cool intro, by the way. Watch this.
If you can't
This
see how
pump
this can be competitive, then you're not thinking deeply enough about it yet.
Well, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to
Killer. And that reminds me of Susu, bro. Honestly, man. He doesn't do the
Kitchen
Susu
Table
hand camera
TCG.
thing, but this guy, you could totally see it. So Kitchen Table TCG sits down for 50 minutes to talk with Mike Waddell. And he goes over a lot of different things with Mike. And I got a different appreciation for Mike. We'll talk a lot about Mike in a little bit here because there's a lot of shit going down with him. But the main thing I want to pull from this interview, and I'll be going back to it a lot, is Mike, you can tell, is super passionate about Metazoo. You could tell he put a lot of effort into making this vision happen, and it came to light. And you can't help but be happy for him, you know? I want you guys to hear about him talk about competitive play. I want you to hear talk about his earliest visions from July 19th. Again, I can't stress, right at the release of Metazoo. I want you to hear about all these bright ideas that this man
Americans
has.
have had.
I got to find them
And,
first of all. Give
you
me
know,
a minute.
I'm focusing on the US right now because that's where Cryptid Nation is. But
So this is him.
just-
He's talking about the cryptids and how involved he is in it, and how he likes the IP and everything, and he wanted to build a world around these cryptids. Can't blame him for that. That's awesome. Good for you.
Kickstarter pre-con decks, and we played a game about it. And one of the things I really realized,
I think this is talking about fourth walls.
It's a little bit of a deeper game than I maybe gave it credit.
This is
for
important. Everybody,
originally when I
are we listening, chat? Are we listening? This is very important.
was opening packs. There's a sense to the community right now where it's like collecting and opening packs, and the first edition isn't even out yet, right? Like it's July 18th, and like your first edition
I'm gonna
is
fast
not
forward
even
a
out
bit.
yet. So like I always thought like it's kind of a lighthearted game, and when I played it, it was a lot more deep than I understood it to be at first. And it has a lot of mechanics. Like it has like the same mana system basically as Magic the Gathering. Correct me if I'm wrong, but similar mana system as Magic the Gathering. It has a lot of the Pokemon stuff, right? Where you have
Okay, talking about a lot of the card game. I'm waiting until he introduced the fourth wall effect.
And what are you passionate about in that way?
Yeah. So a lot of people, because they focus, and it's the easier thing to focus on, so I don't blame them, on the collectability aspects that I baked into the product. They just assumed that I was like, screw it with the playability part. But what they have to recognize is that the playability and the mechanics came before the focus on cryptids specifically, right? Like I wanted a game that had kind of all the gears and wheels and knobs of the TCGs that I love, but then had this fourth wall aspect to it, right? And so I put in as much synergy as I could bake in, as much complexity. Like what I wanted a game that had a really low barrier to entry and that was inviting to people to play.
Listen to
But
this, guys.
the
You learn a
ceiling
lot
on
about him
complexity
here.
was incredibly high, right? And it's kind of a cliche to use chess as an example, but anyone can learn chess from a very young age. But the ceiling on complexity when it comes to chess is almost infinite, right?
Right.
And with Yu-Gi-Oh, I felt it's an amazing game, but I felt like it's hard to just jump into. I feel like you almost have to have all.
My man, shout out for the best game though. You could tell, bro. But this essentially what I want you to gather is that you could tell Mike is very, very passionate about making the game playable. The collectability aspect is something he baked in inherently with the first edition. It's something that he wanted to happen for sure. But the big thing is a wide-eyed Michael Waddell wants Metazoo to be a actually competitive game that people enjoy and take seriously. He comes from Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, Pokemon, all these kids that we grew up on as kids. So he takes all these different aspects, the first edition from Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! He takes in the mana system from Magic the Gathering. But the main thing is he wants it to be easy to pick up, which Yu-Gi-Oh!, even though he says is a great game mechanically, you just can't pick up and play. It doesn't make sense for a lot of people. So he wants to make sure it's easy to pick up. But
played Yu-Gi-Oh! In order
he also talks about it wanting to have this ridiculously high skill set.
Right.
Skill set. How do you do that? How do you do that with a game with fourth
even
walls?
Pokemon are different. I think that they are very welcoming to new players as well. So,
I know I'm going to be sitting and watching this a little bit too. It's because we're going to be coming back to it a lot.
they have that going for them. I'm not too sure or too convinced about the ceiling on complexity with Pokemon, but of course
Right.
Magic does have that. But then you have to question whether or not the barrier to entry for Magic is as low as it should be or as low as it is with Pokemon. So all that to say, like going forward, I'm going to create these sets with that in mind. And I think that we're almost unique in that, where it's kind of like it's very welcoming. You think that the game can be played in a very simple format, but then once you start adding fourth wall stuff, and once you start thinking about that as what you can do with that from a format perspective in terms of competitive play, organized play, there's really no ceiling to it. And on that note, like I really want to partner, maybe not even produce it in-house, but I want to partner with companies in order to create an organized play scene that really focuses on kind of the razzle dazzle of competitive play. Like if you can imagine a tournament where we have these synthetic fourth wall environments, or pseudo environments as I call them, where it is actually fun to televise because we have a semi-working volcano that's set up in the arena, right? And I know it sounds silly, but if we can make the purses attractive enough, if we can make the spectacle interesting enough, then there's no reason why we can't do what esports did, where they have, it's actually considered a sport now, when people they take it very, very seriously, and it appeals to more people, more than just the people that play.
That's a huge part to keep in mind there. That's a huge part to keep in mind right there. So Mike, from the very beginning, there's not been a single tournament that has been hosted yet. Keep that in mind. He has this vision of creating these large, grandiose sets that you can play off of with the fourth wall effects in the game. That's awesome. What a cool idea to actually bake in, right? So for somebody's like, I can't play this deck because there's not a log insight that's broken down or anything like that. Somebody would obviously get really upset about that. But Mike has taken a step further, and he says, we're going to make it so you don't have to worry about it. You know what? You come to our event, and you're fully immersed in the Metazoo experience. Very, 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 man, notable guy. I'm going to talk a lot of shit about Mike Waddell later, but you can see from this early stages of the game that he's very passionate about making the game work, and he wants people to get the hands on the cards and not only appreciate them for the collectability that they have, but also he wants people to play it. He really wants people to play the game because he's putting a lot of time into making it work. As you said before, too, the first thing he said was making the game work was the most important thing on his schedule there.
We haven't seen that.
So they go a little bit farther on here talking about the roadmap, what's to expect for Metazoo coming forward. There's one very particular thing that comes out, which is a little bit of foreshadowing for later from Mike Waddell. And the one thing that you come up with Mike Waddell here is that he loves to partner with people. He loves to talk business. Coming from a man that has worked data analytics in Goldman Sachs, you would expect that. He's a man that is very connected with people, and he wants to be able to build these connections to build the awareness of his product. Smart man, it's just business. The one thing where this doesn't go right, though,
we talk
is
about all the time. People
you don't realize you've partnered with the wrong people until you give them too much leeway with your IP. We'll get a lot later into talking about why partnering with so many people and being so la-di-da relaxed about partnering goes very wrong. But Mike Waddell in this interview, he says something along the lines of, I can't exactly find the right timestamp, but he said something along the lines of, if partnering with people, it's probably around here, I'll let it play.
Believe that just because online retail was on the rise, that brick and mortar was going to disappear. But brick and mortar is still the lifeblood of most industries. And even though online is on the rise, we're talking percentage points in comparison to like 90% that's still brick and mortar.
True.
So what a lot of brick and mortar businesses are doing is they're focusing, like you just said, more on the experiential, right? So, you walk into a Harley.
It's not going to be, it probably won't be around here. But the one thing that I get from Mike when he talks about partnering with different people is if it's as easy as wooing them into accepting Metazoo as a real IP, money in the bank, If I can seal these different partnerships to expand the Metazoo universe, there's no reason I'm not going to do that. And the one thing that he comes up with that becomes a very big point of contention later is non-fungible tokens. He brings up in this interview as early as July 19th, NFTs are on the roadmap for Metazoo. However, the way Mike presents it is very loose. Mike says, and I quote, this is like a quote from here, he says, if people want it, what's my reason for not giving it to them? Mike does not share anything about his expectations for NFTs, whether or not he believes in the blockchain or anything like that. He doesn't go too depth in it. But his reasoning is, if the people want it, why would I not give it to them? And that becomes a very, very bad omen for later on. So,
Harley Davidson.
I think that's some of the big things from this interview here, is capturing that Mike is very excited for the future of Metazoo and what he can possibly do with it. What's the drama with Mike Waddell? I'll get in there. Don't worry. There's a lot we got to talk about with Mike here. So Mike, cool things that we got to get from this. Huge vision. He has a lot of cool things that are planned for his card game that he wants to see happen. But the other big thing is he doesn't care who he partners with to make this vision happen. And this causes for some huge problems later down the line. Well, this brings me to today, okay? There's a lot of drama surrounding Metazoo right now. Not only Metazoo, the brand, which is an important thing to distinguish, but also the Metazoo card game. The one thing that it has been built upon, Mike Waddell's dream, is now currently in jeopardy. And who's to blame for it? Other than no one but Mike Waddell himself. So we talked about that guy earlier, Mr. Kodak. Well, Kodak, as you could see, super involved in the game. He said he was there before the hype. He loved the IP of it, the idea of all the cryptids and everything. You could tell he was really involved in the game. He released this, bro, last month? Literally last month. 1 month ago. Friendship ended with Metazoo. Keep in mind, this guy with 50K subscribers, one of the largest viewed videos on release to promote the brand and stuff like that. And he releases this 8-minute video.
So, I just finished sending off all of my Metazoo stuff. Well, not like all of it. I have a game archive to maintain, and I still have like a few of the cards, but for the most part, Metazoo is gone from my collection. In my opinion, it has crossed the point of no return. So, like, a little over a year ago, almost 2 years ago, the Metazoo game came out. It was a game based on, cryptids, Bigfoot, and all that. The person who made it, they reached out to me, and we talked. I helped him out with
That's Mike Waddell.
his game design. I mean, it looked kind of corny. I actually did not really expect it to go places the way it has. I thought it would be like a brief distraction. But then, of course, the crypto bros showed up, and the people who treat trading card games as investments rather than as something to play showed up, and things just went out of control. But even I will openly admit that when you're involved in a project, it can be difficult to sometimes spot its flaws. And the biggest one from
See, that's a lot of the stuff that I talked about too.
I mean, the fact that people were treating it like an investment rather than a game was definitely a problem. I mean, it started.
See, so he goes on to about talking about like the problems that there was already cracks from the scene from the start. And as you can see, it's stuff that he could avoid. Kodak could avoid them from the early stages because he was so enthused by the IP. He thought there was a lot to offer from it. A world based on cryptids who nobody's done it before. Like, that's awesome. And for somebody that was a fan of the artwork and everything, he thought it was going to see. But as you can see, he said the crypto bros took over. And that's what I think a lot of people try to attribute with the large rise from the cards from the start. From the start, actually, I think it was just an anomaly. The Metazoo cards from the first release at Kickstarter and stuff like that, when there was no signs of NFTs actually on the site, unless you watched specifically that interview, I need to make that apparent too. There was a lot of people that didn't see this coming, even though it was already prophesized from the start. It seemed like a pretty cool IP to try to tackle. A man builds up from the bootstraps over COVID. He takes a dream that he had, making a card game that involves all these fourth wall effects, and he makes it happen. It's anybody's grassroots story that you want it to happen. So when he started introducing NFTs to the line, that is when Kodak had left the space and stuff like that. Kodak was pretty involved in it too. Not only that, but as of recently, what I've learned is Metazoo has been holding these competitions, these art competitions, where you can submit art and then have your card potentially printed in the game with the art that you've done. Now, obviously, there's a lot of different things as if that's right or wrong. If you have people that are so invested in the game, they'll do it anyways for free. But a lot of artists have a problem of the model of you submit me art and then I pick one of like 50,000 and the rest of you 4,900 go fuck off. Like, sorry, like you did that for nothing. So it's a very wishy-washy thing. But this guy was a part of the create your own card thing where he could submit art and he won. He has his own card in the Metazoo game, and imagine, just take a second. Imagine having your own card in one of your favorite card games that has just come up off the block and leaving it, saying, oh my God, I can't believe I even associated myself with this. That's exactly what this guy did. So what he did is he sold off all of his Metazoo product. He said, anybody take it, I'm dumping all of it. And he says, if you guys want me to sign the card that I made, feel free to send it to me. I'll do it. Other than that, I don't want anything to do with Metazoo. I'm done. I'm gone. He also has a very important line in here that I want to find because it's so telling about a problem that we see much later.
To more types of fraud than like regular banking. I mean,
this is him talking about his opinions on NFTs and how they're susceptible to fraud and everything, just like anything else.
Of the cost. And blockchain technology doesn't even really offer banking. I mean, arbitrate a server that you run some business here, but so yeah, Metazoo did NFTs. They did like a couple when it first started surging in popularity. I mean, that bothered me. I said, dude, NFTs aren't a good idea. Like I actually reached out to the guy and talked about how NFTs aren't a good idea. And I don't know if he definitely didn't get the picture. We now know in hindsight. Later, he put out like these tokens, like literal tokens for NFTs. But the idea was that these were tokens that were secured against physical product that was already being produced.
This is all important. This is all super, super important because it all comes to a head. Like literally in the last month, everything has just exploded. But you need this context for me to give you everything.
Somebody couldn't take one of these tokens and say, hey, it's actually worth $10,000. People would look at it say look at how like it can be redeemed for like one booster box and stuff, and say no, that's like maybe $200 at most. At least it had like a purpose, like something like it had like fungibility. It could be exchanged for actual goods, which is something that most NFTs don't have. Most NFTs are just scams basically. But I again told the guys, like, this is a bad idea. In fact, I think I used the word, "You're making me look like a dope," because supporting Metazoo now meant supporting NFTs.
Yep.
And he actually cried into my shoulder for a bit. He was like, "Oh, there's all the drama that these NFTs
This is it.
are causing." It's like he cried into my shoulder for a bit, and I thought, okay, he's gotten the picture. He's not going to do NFTs anymore. But then, a couple of weeks ago, it happened. So Axie Infinity was what is known as a play-to-earn game, where you
start talking about this game based on Ethereum, which is called Axie Infinity, which you build up these dudes, and it's essentially they're just money printers. There's a lot of flaws in it on itself that I won't get into. It doesn't really correlate that well with Metazoo, I don't think, so I don't know why he tries to tie it. But the big thing that he says is that the creator was crying on his shoulder with all the drama surrounding all these NFTs that he introduced in the game. The first NFTs that were released for the Metazoo, I actually have them up here. That's the timeline. Close. These were the first ones released, the first cryptid NFTs released for the Metazoo. They don't do anything too crazy. I don't think they do anything at all. Besides maybe giving you access to a product or something like that. The big thing is that there wasn't a huge tie-in with the card game on its way. That wasn't until later that you start to see some very egregious things happen with the NFTs. So obviously, like he said, this guy, excuse me, let me find the video again. Kodak, he's upset with the NFT, the premise of it. He goes, it's kind of, you're making me look like an idiot. Don't push it too far, but I still enjoy the game. It's fine. There's some things that they ended up doing very recently that are just essentially off the wall. So, but the big thing I want you to get from this is that this guy here loved the game, loved the IP from the start, left because of cryptocurrency and everything that has happened with the Metazoo crypto from there. But the big thing is that he had connections with Mr. Waddell, and Mike was unhappy with all the response from the NFTs. Why would Mike be unhappy? He's the one that made the deal, right? Well, there's a lot to it. Recently, there's a lot of drama that has been going on, a lot. And it all stems from the creator program, not the creator program, but it's called the Metazoo Partner Program. The Metazoo Partner Program takes some of the creators or some of the industry leader heads, not industry leader heads, excuse me, some of the social media figureheads of Metazoo, and it allows them to have allocated amounts of products to then sell to their fan base or anything like that. Essentially keeping the game alive through the fans that actually enjoy it, but through going through their favorite creators and stuff like that. There's been a select few amount of creators that both own their own trading card shop, like Mr. Cryptid here, and then there's also some that run it themselves. So, Cryptid TCG was one of the few people that was a part of this original OG, keep in mind, the original partner program for Metazoo. He saw it from the start. He liked it. He wanted to make it work. So, as of recently, Cryptid, one thing that I need to point out too, because it does become relevant, is the scene for Metazoo is not as big as it seems. You would think, since I'm talking about it today, that it's big, that a lot of people were talking about it. This was huge on the release. Huge. Absolutely ridiculous. You could not be in any trading card space, knowing the man. Doesn't matter, sports cards, fucking Yu-Gi-Oh! Magic, card fight. You couldn't be anywhere without hearing Metazoo. Just everything that was surrounding about it. So it was a big deal from the start. Where did everybody go? From what I've learned from watching these YouTubers, everyone that is strictly involved with just Metazoo, nobody plays this game. Cryptid is known as one of the largest Metazoo content creators at 416 subscribers. He has recently left Metazoo completely and stopped selling it in his store, which he said was one of the big draws from Metazoo. Here's a video he posted called Metazoo, We Deserve Better. It is a 4-minute sting of him essentially saying, what are you doing, Metazoo? There's a lot of drama that this guy is involved in because he's been an OG supporter of the thing in the partners, that he knows a lot of information that a lot of people don't. This video has very bad audio, but essentially the gist of it, I will watch it together. You know what? It's 3 minutes. Let's sit down. I think it's very important to show this guy wasn't fucking around.
Morning, guys. It's Cryptid TCG, and I'm here at the LGS. It's with a heavy heart. I have to make this decision. I'm suspending all Metazoo play in the store, and I'm suspending all Metazoo sales in the store. And it's tough. It's something I really didn't want to have to do, but I feel we all deserve better from Metazoo. You as a customer, I as a retailer, we deserve to be treated a lot better than they have been treating us. And this has been brewing for a long time. It's finally come to the head. I'm no longer a Metazoo partner. I'm no longer selling the product. And basically, no one else has come out with these videos because there's constantly a carrot that's being dangled in front of everybody's faces. Metazoo Games gives people just enough to keep them going without bringing this stuff up. And this is going to be an entire video series about Metazoo Games and what they're doing and what they need to do and how they need to treat us better. Whether you have been banned in their Discord for posting an emoji that they don't agree with and doesn't fit their narrative, or expressing your own opinion, it's a very dangerous thing when someone tells you how to think, how to act, and what to do. Whatever you do, people, if Metazoo Games moves down to South America and starts a commune, do not move down there. And for God's sake, do not drink the Kool-Aid. We're going to be exposing this. I feel everybody needs an apology from Metazoo Games. And the ball's in their court. I'm putting the ball in their court. I want to see an apology in the comments from Metazoo Games and what they're going to do better moving forward. The form they came out with on their Discord to fill out and send in and tell us what you think of Metazoo.
So essentially, the rest of the video, he goes on talking about how Metazoo released a feedback form and how they're not going to give a shit about any of the results. It doesn't matter. But the big thing is what that I want you to get is that he's very upset. You can tell. Like, something went over the edge. He's not playing games. And this is where Metazoo as the trading card game should have been scared, because this guy comes out with some heaters. They don't go viral because I don't think the community literally exists outside of, by the way, I think he self-proclaims in the next video I'm going to show you that he maybe thinks total there's 4,000 people that are actively a part of the Metazoo trading card game community. Just picture that for a second. 4,000. You could probably put that all into like one big convention hall. 4,000. We get 2,000 at a YCS sometimes. Back in maybe a year or two ago, we were getting 2,000 at nationals for Pittsburgh and everything. Your whole community worldwide is the attendance of a Nats. It doesn't exist. So what's he talking about? Not drinking the Kool-Aid. He's very upset about the Discord and being silenced, not being able to have his freedom of speech. Who is to blame for all of this? This is where I'm going to start talking about the bad side of Michael Waddell. So I was speaking a lot about how I really liked Mike's idea and everything, and how could you blame him for having this large vision for a dream that he had during COVID-19? It's really, truthfully, something amazing to be able to build it up to where it is today. It is big. It's huge. Metazoo as an IP is gargantuan. So he really did it. But what's the problem with this card game? Why is this card game completely flipping the switch? Well, Michael Waddell was involved with a lot. That's the same video. Hold on. I gotta go back to Cryptid. So far, Cryptid, as of early as 5 days ago, has released another big thing based on the Metazoo stuff. He's talking about why he sees it on the downturn and what they have to do to fix it. So he goes on to going to this video, the 23-minute-long video called Metazoo, Do We Have a Problem? And this is essentially how Mr. Cryptid lost his partnership status. So this video is very long. There's a lot of drama into it. But I'm going to go over a couple of the cliff notes that are very important. So the one thing to remember here is Cryptid, how it essentially started was there is this Discord group of all these OG partners. These ones that are backed from the start, by Metazoo to help get people involved in the game. Like Cryptid, I think Kodak was also a partner too. These guys are partners to try to push the game and everything. And these guys have been there from the very start. They're in a group, a private group called Black Border Society. The Black Border is a reference to the sample cards. That's why I said it was important. The collectability. So Black Border Society, you can tell this group is very involved in the financial aspect, ensuring that their cards are worth money. The pumpers, that's not what they are exactly. It's just people originally involved with the game. They want to talk about everything that they can freely. And the big thing about this group, it was a group for these partners to be able to discuss anything. The market, they could discuss Metazoo themselves, what's going right, what's going wrong. But the thing was, it was the safe haven for all these original partners to be able to vent their grievances or talk about things that they wanted to. They bought collections and everything, but it was a very tight-knit society, right? One of the things that started happening is partners kept getting axed. Partners out of nowhere were losing their statuses, and a lot of people were very upset about it. Not a lot of people, but the partners were upset about it because they didn't know what it was. Come to find out that all these assumably private conversations that these partners were having as friends in this group were being leaked to Mr. Waddell, the creator of the game. And some of these messages, they weren't the nicest. Some of them, the partners were worried about not being able to sell product after they got their allocations. They realized, wow, I'm going to get 250 boxes. I don't have anybody to flip these to. What's Metazoo doing? They need to tone back on their printing runs because obviously the demand for the card game is dwindling. But rather than adjusting these print runs to be able to make these boxes worth anything at all rather than just rotting on shelves, Metazoo is pushing forward with these 100,000 print runs that obviously will not sell. So Cryptid was venting these grievances in this private group. And there's been, keep in mind, these are all creators and all buddy-buddy, right? Apparently there's a little rat in the group named Argos Anonymous. There's a lot that goes into Argos Anonymous. I haven't watched any of his videos because I don't think any of them relevant. The one thing that we have to remember with Argos is he is proclaimed by the rest of the people in the Metazoo scene as the largest Metazoo channel at 4.49k subscribers. And on top of that, he's not even purely a Metazoo creator. However, this man, because of his stature with 4.49k subscribers, he is the authoritative figure of the Metazoo community. Argos Anonymous had been leaking these chat logs that were assumed to be private to Michael Waddell. Some of these messages were not nice. They were things like, what is going on? Things need to change. But the thing about Michael is Michael didn't want to hear it. And that's where these messages come from. It is under the pseudonym of Metazoo Games here, but you don't know right away who it is. It's under Cryptid's assumption that this guy is Michael Waddell, directly messaging him. And we're going to watch a little bit of this because we see something that is super similar to something that has happened in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game that I'm so excited to correlate. However, let's watch a little bit and see exactly what happened between this interaction with Cryptid and Michael Waddell that led to him losing his partnership status.
Not important. Thanks for bringing it to my attention. We go to June 27th.
So you go, he talks about his first messages here, and they're pretty, fair and everything. He's just, it's Cryptid sending something to the Metazoo Games page saying, hey, I don't know if you're aware of this, and it's just pretty civil and everything. From there,
talking about,
he has another post here where he has all these Kickstarter boxes that he's gotten and obtained recently. I think he's sold them all, but he was showing off this page here and said, hey, man, we've been collecting these. I can't wait to see you at this first event that you guys are going to hold. I'm excited. He's stoked for the game and everything. Very civil, fun conversations to have with the Metazoo page, right?
This game and
he talks about how he got into the game and he was very bright-eyed about it. Super cool.
Thank you for the channel.
This is the Metazoo Games page giving him his up allocation for the second set and everything like that, which is Nightfall and stuff like that. So after this huge rise, everything is still going well for the game. And being a Metazoo partner, Cryptid got surprised by having his allocation upped. He's going to get more product to give away to people. That's awesome. Who wouldn't want that, right?
More product. And I never did sign a contract. This is pretty much the way it went down.
The way it went down, he's like, Ted, this is your allocation. You're good to go. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome, dude. Thank you.
And I believe this is just more stuff. Reach out to Shaw. If you don't know Shaw, he owns Game Castle.
From there, shit goes haywire. So right around this area here, which is December 15th, 2021, this is the second release of the Cryptid Nation boxes. So the second edition that I was talking is toxic and nobody can get rid of. This is the stuff that all these people, these creators and stuff got stuck with. They got stuck with these boxes and they're trying to sell them for the recommended retail price that Metazoo Games has told them, which is $65, right? Well, turns out somebody, which is Pokezoo, that was also a Metazoo partner, since they kept these boxes and they just couldn't get rid of them, this guy was messaging to try to figure out, why they're selling them below MSRP. They're selling them for $50 a box, which you're taking a loss at that point. Whatever you paid for the boxes, you're not making money on them. You're either barely breaking even if you got a special offer as a creator, or you're straight up losing money. But you have to get rid of the product, otherwise you can't pay back your credit card company or something if you bought it that way. You put yourself in debt. So he's asking, is it allowed to sell these boxes? Because he's a partner, are you allowed to sell it below MSRP? No response, whatever. And then he can't find a link to his store, whatever. Something happens recently. This is in early March. And the Metazoo game hits him up and say, hey, man, you're a partner, right? I can see that you are a partner. Goes into talking about if he sold his pre-sale for the next Wilderness thing. There's some drama going on, and these chat logs are getting leaked, right? And nobody knows who does it, but it's assumed that it's this man Argos. Well, Argos ends up sending these logs that Cryptid has said. Not anything too egregious, by the way, but he said stuff like he's starting to slip in and out of believing in the product or not with all the stuff going around. Well, this guy, whoever's representing Metazoo Games here, had enough. He said, man, thanks for talking shit. He said, now you will never sell anything ever again. You are no longer a partner. Just right off the bat, rips him of his partner status and stuff like that. Have a nice evening. A lot of this stuff here, if you're just reading it in front of me, some of it won't make sense. And Cryptid goes into talking about how a lot of these messages were deleted by the Metazoo Games thing to cover up tracks and stuff like that. Whether or not it was probably just, from what he said, it's a lot of unprofessional stuff, just like insulting, calling him mean stuff and everything, like mean-spirited stuff that if you're representing a company, you really shouldn't be doing. But that stuff, it's not as important to the larger scale of he was saying bad things about Mike Waddell and he was saying bad things about Metazoo being a partner. That's breach of contract. He gets stripped. It seems fair, right? Well, this has been happening to a lot of people, and a lot of people don't know who the rat in the group is or who's leaking these chat logs that would get these people to be stripped of these things because there's no incentive to do it. Why would somebody want to stymie the growth of the game that they're trying to grow, right? So what this Metazoo Games page was doing is it was sending screen caps of these chat logs from private groups. Imagine somebody is not in this private group and you receive from somebody a screenshot of something you said. Let me try to find a better way to describe this. If I'm in a Konami group chat, or I'm in a Yu-Gi-Oh group chat or something like that, and I'm talking about, oh my god, bro, what do they fucking think they're doing? Releasing this brand new XYZ product. Bogus, bro. I can't believe they did that. And I said that in the confines of what I thought was a private group. And then all of a sudden, I get a message from Mr. Konami themselves, bro. Konami hits me up on Discord and they say, is this you? They send me a screenshot of everything that I said that was said in confidence and says, this you? All right, man, you're banned. Never see you again. Bye-bye. Have fun. That's exactly what this happened to this guy here. So at the first glance here, you're not sure who Metazoo Games is, but it's under Cryptid's authority to assume it is Michael Waddell. And this is where we run into a problem. And that is having the figurehead, the dream child of whoever made the product, being involved with anything that has to do with public relations. And it's sort of a pride thing, you know? I feel like if you've built your company from the ground up, you want to be involved with it for as long as you can. You know, you're the only person that can articulate your dream that you still have today. And that's not a bad thing, but that pride can become toxic when you don't know how to deal with problems or you don't know how to deal with people. And if this page, which it's definitely got to be actually, this Discord, it has to be Michael Waddell. If you put yourself in that position, you must make sure that you can behave accordingly. Where have we seen this explode in somebody else's face before? Yu-Gi-Oh! Has its own legacy with having a very toxic, authoritative figure be the helm of all the public relations of their events. Anybody remember Alter Reality Games? I'm curious. 150 of you in chat. Who remembers ARG? Alter Reality Games. This is actually, it sounds familiar. It's so funny because some people just might not know. Alter Reality Games, picture it as the pro play games of the early days, right? Alter Reality Games blazed a trail that no other people would even dare set foot for, and they were hosting their own cash tournament events for Yu-Gi-Oh! Strictly to try to draw players in to play more of the game that they loved. The ARG Circuit Series was, I guess, just blazed the trail for all of these non-sanctioned events to actually be a thing. PPG would be a shell of the company that it was today if it was not for the groundwork that ARG had put together with their Circuit Series events. But the problem with ARG was not the vision and the dream itself, but the head of management. Jim McMahon is one of the worst business people that I've ever had the displeasure of meeting. I worked with him before. I hold a lot of the things I've learned from doing business with ARG very close to me. And I would not be anywhere I was today if it wasn't for what I've learned my process through ARG. But the one thing about ARG that a lot of people tend to remember, and it's not a good thing, is the head of management, Jim McMahon. Jim McMahon is an abrasive, greedy businessman. But he is a genius. And when you put those two things together, you get a very, very dangerous mix. Picture Kanye West. I love Yeezy, bro. Kanye. Picture a man so musically talented that he cannot release a bad track. He puts his mind to any project and he makes it happen. But take him when you have this God complex and it puts a bad omen on your thing. Well, Jim has been the source of so much drama for ARG. I wouldn't be surprised if it was due to him that the Circuit Series is no more. As you can see, you can't find the Circuit Series anyways, but it was such a large thing. Announcing the ARG format? No, this wasn't even it either. This wasn't even it. I was a part of this, bro. I remember. I was the one that first actually made a video on this stuff here. ARG made their own ban list and everything. But Jim, the problem with Jim is Jim liked to insert himself as the authoritative figure of ARG. And Jim is not a very personable person, I will say. There's been multiple instances of Jim being an absolute asshole to many people. One of my very good friends, Olympia, if anybody remembers the scene, straight up just being a complete dickhead to him. But it's hard to really, if you didn't experience it at the time, it's really hard to show you that Jim was such an abrasive person. Yo, Tanaki, my man, thanks for the bits, bro. I appreciate it, dude. By the way, guys, I know I've been talking about this for a while. This is the one thing I have planned today. Is everybody enjoying this? I just want to make sure everybody's like actually following along and enjoying what I'm talking about. There's still a lot to go through, and I'm so excited to talk about it. There's so much to go through, bro. But yeah, so when you have a toxic person in charge of it, it's a pride thing, you know? I built my vision up. I want to be the one that's able to accurately describe all these different things to it. But Michael is one of those. Michael is a Jim McMahon. Michael, from the early days, you couldn't tell was a Jim McMahon. But as the game started to rise and everything like that, people call him a tyrant now. He has a whole bunch of shit that is going over him. Not only this Discord stuff, but the Discord that he's talking about, that Crypta is talking about, is plagued with the Metazoo games being an absolute tyrant, banning anybody that has a dissenting opinion about the Metazoo trading card game. It's bad. It's to the point like it's a cult, as Cryptid actually describes it as. He says it's a cult following. So he says, like, if you go into the Metazoo group, say anything negative, question anything about production, anything that might be you doubting the game, you're instantly removed from the group. You're done. And that's not a good culture to try to build when you're trying to expand the reach of your game. When you get people that only are yes men, you tend to not make changes that are necessary for your game to grow. On top of this, they have a whole bunch of people from this Metazoo group apparently going into other groups trying to expand the Metazoo universe and everything. But at that point, you're just trying to push people onto the game that maybe aren't enjoyed it. So the big thing that you have to get from it is that Michael is a tyrant. He does not like to hear dissenting opinions. He wants his game to be the best thing it possibly can, and he will not hear anything else that is outside of that. If you're a partner, if you are under his wing promoting his game, you cannot say anything bad about it. You cannot. It will get you removed from the group, and it will get you removed from the vision that Michael has put together. So obviously, not having freedom of speech is a big thing, and it's a big thing for the Cryptid TCG channel from what I've watched. He says, if you guys have anything, Cryptid says, if you guys have anything bad to say, if you have anything to say at all, feel free to put it in the comments section, because having your voice is that important. Michael Waddell doesn't seem to think so. So this is Michael being super shady, being an asshole and everything like that, removing Cryptid from his partner status, completely eradicating everything like that. Cryptid has not come back since, but this is all that drama going towards that and everything like that. As you can see, this is like some of the stuff. This is actually, I think, the thing that got him banned from his group here. It's Cryptid venting his grievances with weekly crash grab products, all these auxiliary products that aren't core sets being released all the time with these promos that are only exclusively in there. And then how he's saying, like, all these products are great to have over time, sure, but when you keep dropping them every week, nobody has money to be able to buy the new booster box that comes out at $65. Nobody still even wants it. So you take a loss. Any local game store that is a partner with it cannot sell this product because everybody blew their load on all the auxiliary products, right? They've done tons of different partnerships that have been objectively really good, like Topps. Anybody remember Topps cards for like sports cards or like old school Pokemon cards? Michael talks about how it was a dream. He had these Topps cards, these Topps Pokemon cards as a kid, and he said, man, it's a dream that I could get these Metazoo cards printed on Topps cards. And he did it. He did it. That's awesome. But it starts to cause problems for his local game store level. When you start partnering with these huge collectible titans like the sports card industry has and everything like that, you start to remember where your vision came from. And that is having a game that anybody can enjoy at their local game store. When you start pushing that out, then you start to capitalize only on the group of people that is causing problems, the investors. So the big thing about the investors of the game is they see it as a cash cow kind of, and it's just not. If you look at TCG Player, a lot of the cards from the first edition set, Cryptid Nation, even the ones even the namesakes like Mothman, who is the most popular IP for the game so far. Everybody kind of resembles Mothman as the title card. You can get the chase card, the card that everybody should be wanting for under $200. Coming from a Yu-Gi-Oh player, like if you come from anywhere outside of Yu-Gi-Oh, that might seem a little steep. You know, right out the gate, that's pretty expensive. But as a Yu-Gi-Oh player, that's nothing. That's nothing. The only thing that has these values of astronomical levels is the Kickstarter project, Original Things. They're designated by a little K in the corner to make sure they're extra special and difficult to get. This is what the entire, like I want to say the collectible aspect of Metazoo is built upon, is these Kickstarter cards because of how actually rare they are. That's the one bit, again, I'm saying that now, that's very, very important for later. Very, very important for later. We got a lot to get through still. So Cryptid got kicked out. He's upset. He's on a rampage. This is recent. He's like, I'm airing all the dirty laundry, that only stuff I would know because I've been an OG supporter from Metazoo from the start. Metazoo said, all right, man, go off, King. And they really shouldn't have. The next video that, that's Argos. The next video that Cryptid posts is another one here. Metazoo out of gas on the way to the moon. A lot of this stuff here, this is further proof that it was Argos Anonymous being the mic informant. Here's him joking about it. I'm getting spammed with messages saying, this is after his first video came out, pretty much accusing Argos of being the leaker. And he's like, what exactly did I inform upon? Well, I mean, I'm not saying I am, but the drama, and I've been kicked. So Argos was kicked. He's the rat. It's an ongoing joke in the community that Argos, even before all this drama, was the rat. So whenever, it's so funny. He was talking about whenever he would go into these different groups or something like that and post something, people would share like a rat emoji because he was just so synonymous with like leaking information or getting people thrown under the bus for no reason. So Argos is the rat, and this is him pretty much just self-admitting it. Krusty Cards, thanks for your gift, by the way. Hey, what is Metapoo? Just a whole bunch of shit that we're talking about, bro. Honestly, like if you want to watch the VOD, I think I'm doing a pretty good job of going over all the drama right now, but it's very interesting. In this video, Cryptid talks about not only pretty much the confirmation that it's Argos being the little asshole here, the little rat, if you will, but also the dangerous upcoming sales of the newest set with Metazoo UFO. This is not out yet. This is still out to come very soon. But he starts going into depth about his grievances and his apprehensions about being able to sell product like we were telling before. Like with all the auxiliary product coming out, he can't sell the main core set. And he goes into this video talking about recent sales of stuff and how the boxes, they sell on TCG Player because these are, and as you would quote, the Timmies that would buy from this because they don't know where else to look. But if you look elsewhere on these partner websites and stuff like that, you can actually see the Cryptid Nation 2 booster box is selling for $50. This was like type of thing where he was asking, are you able to sell as a partner below MSRP? This is what this website is doing like that. And the thing is, it says it's sold out, But he says on a weekly basis, they trickle in a couple boxes there just to make it look like it's in demand and stuff like that. But on the wider scale of all of these people under this umbrella of the partner program, it is a shared grievance that they cannot get rid of these boxes. That the second edition booster boxes aren't selling. Clearly the card game that is based around is not doing well enough to be able to support selling this amount of product. So so most of the partners, they want them to scale back the printing so that these boxes, obviously can find their way into the hands of the people that want them. But also you start to see the seams cracking from the first edition to the unlimited print. The first edition works for pulling a very certain amount of collectors, a very certain type of person, a person that is able to purchase this box and have in mind that these cards will at least retain some sort of value. And from there, it's either they do something where they keep the box or they still crack the box for fun. But the box that is primarily for the aspect of enjoying the game and stuff is not selling well enough to show that the game is doing well from a trading card game standpoint. That's a lot of his grievances, and he says that if you are in the Metazoo, he makes a very bold prediction. He says if you're in the Metazoo space, it's toxic, it is not going to last, and that he is very, very scared for the upcoming release of UFO, and he expects it to be a huge failure. Because the newest set, Wilderness, the boxes, I'm pretty sure the first editions are still at 65, right? Actually, don't even know. I'm going to look that up myself. I didn't look that up, but I'm curious now. Okay, that is not what I wanted to look up. Wilderness, Metazoo. Why can't I find it? Oh, it's in storage. Yeah. First edition booster box, right? We were talking about the first edition and how it's a certain amount of people. Look at this. You can't get rid of them. This is retail. This is retail price. And they can't get rid of the first edition booster boxes, which, by the way, even this set has a gimmick to it where you can pull these golden tickets. They don't do anything yet. They're not confirmed to do anything yet. But as of today, filming this, there's only been 2 in the world pulled. How rare is that, though? You have to ask yourself when your entire global player base is 4,000 people at most, honestly, maybe. It's hard to say. But that's the thing, is you already start to see this decline in people wanting the shit. And it's going to be very bad when you hit the next set and people are still not wanting the prior set. So Cryptid prophesizes his whole downfall. He says, it's going to be bad. You got to get out of it if you can. But what's causing that? Okay, this is a really big part here. This is where everything starts to make sense. All right, we following along? We following along, guys? Because now I'm about to answer the big question. Why is shit hitting the fan? Why are people upset? It's not the card game. The card game itself, actually, seems to be doing okay. I just talked to John Moore, and John Moore actually had something interesting to say. He said he had a friend that attended one of the tournaments at Collecticon. That's where these tournaments are hosted, by the way, or Collecticon specifically. And if you go to the tournament, I'll actually pull it up. I can't believe I didn't pull this up because it's kind of actually a really fascinating thing to see. Metazoo Collecticon tournament. Give me a minute, chat. I'm going to try really hard to find this because it goes full circle. This guy here, Dr. Applesauce, I don't know, bro. I watched his videos once or twice to try to get something, but I'm not.
Cool stuff, so I'll show you guys that stuff that we're going to get when we get it. But behind us, you can see the convention's going in full swing.
That Rocky Mountain, that is Rocky Mountain Collectibles. I saw them before and I was trying to figure it out.
Very excited about that. But they gave us... It says... Oh my God. It's Ronaldo. Ronaldo came and said hi.
It's making me mad that I can't find anything of it because it's really cool. The one thing we have to remember is even with recent tournaments, John Moore was telling me that the attendance is actually pretty fascinating. The attendance for the most recent Collecticon tournament that they had in Dallas, I think, was around 300 players, which is not bad. That's not bad for a regional level. But how's it work? What I asked, I was so into it. I was like, what's the player base like? Do people care about it enough to take it seriously? Give me a minute, guys. I'm going to really have to find it because the Collecticon tournament prizing is also unbelievable. Here you go. Here you go. Here you go. This is exactly what I was looking for, bro. It's called the Caster's Cup. I appreciate you. Okay, so the big thing that has been happening recently, and it surprised me. I was like, who's playing this? Is the Metazoo tournaments that are hosted at Collecticon, which I think is Gary V, one of the Pokemon visionaries who like invest and stuff. I'm pretty sure it's his con, and it supports a whole bunch of kids with autism and stuff, which is great and stuff. That's awesome. But $250,000 cash prize to $100,000 to first place. What? That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for a game that I feel nobody's playing, right? So where's all this money coming from, right? That's insane. You would think that Michael's vision hit it big. He did it. And if you look at the Collecticon Metazoo booth where they hosted the tournament, it would really seem he had. Some of the cool things that he talked about in that initial interview that I showed you guys, having these immersive backgrounds and areas that are like tied to the game to be able to put these effects into play and stuff like that. He built there was these huge stages, well, not stages necessarily, but all these props built to be able to see the vision of all these fourth wall effects actually coming into a competitive play. One of his visions was, imagine you show up to a con. I'm Gage Poljak, right? Metazoo fanatic. I come in strapped with the best deck of the format that I put all my time into. No fourth wall effects are going to catch me off guard. You come into the convention hall, imagine you see at the Metazoo stage, you see a working volcano, which triggers some of the card's effects. You see a downed log, a forest, some kind of waterfall. You're surrounded by the Metazoo environment. He made it happen. He made his dream of having the card game that actually surround you through all the fourth wall and have these props that make them possible. So I asked John, I was like, man, that's great and stuff. And the fourth wall, how's it work? I was like, do people take it seriously? Turns out, the guy that went and played, I asked him to ask these questions to him. He got back to John and said, at the top tables, as you would expect, the competition gets pretty fierce. Obviously, there's a large cash prize on the line. Anybody's going to take it seriously, right? But he said people were actually like using the fourth wall effects to their advantage and stuff like that. And none other than Philly Luna actually played this guy in round 4. Anybody? That's a name that anybody recognize Philly Luna? I'll pull it up, bro. Holy shit! Right? I'm curious, bro. Philly Luna. That's okay if you don't remember Philly Luna, bro. Philly Luna, one of the most, OG goat at the game, bro. Yu-Gi-Oh! This guy was a Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro. He was at this event. He's at this Collecticon event, and he was at round 4. The guy that was giving me this information about the event said he played Philly. So obviously people are taking it seriously, right? I would not expect a person like Philly to not take a game seriously like this. Big things, right? So you would think that Michael made his vision come true, making these elaborate tournaments that actually utilizes fourth wall effects by immersing you at the con into the game of Metazoo. What went wrong? Where's all the drama coming from? It's coming from those non-fungible tokens. But is it Michael's fault? That's the big thing that I want to talk to you guys too. That's a big thing, right? Is it Michael's fault that the NFTs and everything are taking over? No. I'm strongly believing that it is not Michael's fault. I feel bad for Michael. After talking all this shit about him, and some people are like, yes, it was his fault. I'm going on the ropes to say I feel bad for Michael Waddell and what happened to his dream with Metazoo. Because I feel it is not his fault that things are going wrong. So, as we heard from before, NFTs were already on the roadmap for Metazoo. Pick a lane. I got it. Calm down. Metazoo NFTs were on the roadmap, right? But Michael had a very laissez-faire kind of like approach to it. He said, if it's what people want, I will do it. Who's to stop me from making money? If people want this, I'm going to make it happen. It was not the right decision for NFTs. And that is because there's another villain of the story, and that is Steve Aoki. And that name has to ring a bell, right? Steve Aoki. I'm going to go out on a limb, and it's going to be very embarrassing when I say this. I had no idea who Steve Aoki was until I started researching. Is that weird to say? I had no idea who this guy was. Turns out this guy, if you look up his Wikipedia, it's actually kind of funny. He's a DJ from Florida. He's an EDM artist. That's what I got. Read his little bio here. It's kind of funny. An American DJ, record producer, music programmer, record executive, and heir to his father, Rocky Aoi's fortune from Benihana. He's rich. He's rich, bro. How? I'll get into it. That's the big thing, bro. Steve Aoki. So how do I've never heard of this guy, right? He's a very charitable person from I know. How is he rich? Yes, he's rich because he's good at what he does, man. Great artist, I guess, from what I've known. An heir to, of course, like $1 billion franchise and stuff. He's rich. That's what you have to get from it. He's also extremely involved in cryptocurrency. Extremely involved. To the point where if you go to his website, I'm pretty sure homepage landing is just a crypto shill. Maybe not? Whatever. He's into NFTs. That's the big thing you have to get about him. Is Steve is into NFTs. And it becomes very apparent that everything that has been worked on with the NFTs for Metazoo has stemmed from Steve Aoki partnering up with them. Very early on in production, I think Steve says maybe as early as a couple months outside the Kickstarter project, he gets put on as a co-founder of Metazoo. And this is where things start to hit the wall. So Steve is already a big advocate of cryptocurrency and the NFT market and stuff like that. If you go on his Twitter page, which I'll do now, it's literally all crypto shills. He's got the crypto, the NFT profile picture, something with Aoki verse here. This is all NFT shit. It's all NFT stuff. Everything about it. The Metazoo NFTs here, cryptid. Yeah, dropping soon, actually. Look at that. Next week. If anybody wants one of these profile pictures. Everything that is NFT related to Metazoo is all done through Steve. All of it. All of it. And it's all made apparent on this video here. This video I found in passing last night, and it made everything make sense. This guy here, this guy name is, he's Sports Cards Investor. I'm pretty sure his name is Jeff something. Jeff Wilson. I don't have any grievances about him, but we're going to watch his intro video because it is on another level, bro.
Today,
watch this
we have
shit.
World-famous DJ Steve Aoki, along with his co-founder in Metazoo, Mike Waddell, joining the program to talk about the future of Metazoo, collecting, and trading card games.
My name is Jeff Wilson. By day, I invest in tech companies, and at night, I invest in sports cards. Join me and my team as we help you profit from the hobby we all love.
Hello, sports card investors, and welcome to an
Interesting choice by the editor. Very, very interesting. Bro, I don't care how cringy you say that is, man. This guy's got it, bro. If he's so confident in being able to profit off of sports cards, I don't even care, bro. As cringy as that is, that's sick. So Jeff Wilson, I don't have any gripes with him, bro. He seems like a really nice guy. But he gets into this interview today with Steve Aoki and Mike Waddell on the future of Metazoo. And a lot of the shit that you would think is going wrong here makes perfect sense when you start to hear Steve talk about the game that he is a co-founder of, okay? Sure. This is the first interview that I saw anything from Steve talking about, right?
Next, you need to put like
Okay.
some poppers, like some fun stuff,
Okay, all right. Smoke cannons in 2022.
They're talking about Mike had a birthday or something recently, blah, 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 blah. Nothing important. It's when Mike comes on here that everything starts to make sense. We're going to watch this through just a little bit. And then so the first thing that you start to notice is Mike will talk about the vision of the card game and everything that surrounds the world of Metazoo. After it is passed off to Steve to talk about all the collectible aspect of it, you will start to hear where all the stuff that goes wrong comes from. Let's listen.
Welcome to the virtual holiday.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
And this has been an amazing year for Metazoo. This trading card game has taken off like
Go a little quicker.
rocket ship. And we're going to talk about that in the trading card game space. Tell me what this year's been like for you, and for those not familiar with Metazoo, maybe tell them a little bit about the game as well.
Yeah, I mean, so Metazoo it's a a trading card game, but I think Steve and I are starting to think of it more as a multimedia franchise, just because of all the different verticals.
That's
that
important
we're
too.
getting into. But it's about cryptids. We call them beasties, but it's cryptids, yokai, creatures of all sorts of folklore. And we created a trading card game that's kind of like a lightning rod for all of this. And it took off. I mean, these are stories and creatures and urban legends that we all grew up with. And so it's really resonated with people. And the year has just been nuts.
Different verticals, shitstorm. So it's very important here. I can't wait to wrap this all up and everything makes sense for anybody that's tuned in from the start here. Because it really is a sad circle to go into.
I can't believe that it's only been 7 months since we launched the Kickstarter product and started sending it out to people. But since then, we've released a first edition base set. We've released Nightfall. We're almost submitting our third set to the printers called Wilderness, which will be released in March. We've collabed with Topps. We've done. We're working on plushies. We're working on skateboards. I mean, it's just been a crazy year. Steve's got involved really early on, and we're having a blast. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been
the big
7 months ago. That's incredible. Go ahead.
The big announcement is Walmart.
Oh yeah, Walmart too.
That is the biggest.
Steve has got a big head for this too, bro, because the reason they start to talk about Walmart and why Walmart is a big deal for Steve is completely wrong. It's backwards.
Announcement for 2022. The Metazoo will be.
Hey, Nim, if you didn't find this interview, would you still be talking shit about Mike? Zach, I'm glad you were here from the start. Yes. Yesterday when I posted about this stuff and I got super into it, I was fully into talking shit about fucking Mike. But at the end of this interview, I have a lot to say about him that reverses it.
In Walmart.
And we're working
guys.
on.
We are breaking news here on the virtual Metazoo going retail in 2022 in Walmart.
Impressive.
Congrats, guys. That is huge. That is huge for the development of the game.
It's all about foot traffic, right? It's about exposure. So, we're going to be with Wilderness in over 1,000 local game stores worldwide. So, think like Australia, New Zealand, the UK, Europe, LATAM, Central America, the US, obviously, and Canada. But what Walmart gets us, and we're working on Target and GameStop, is it gets us exposure to just millions and millions of people in thousands and thousands of stores across the US. And that, even if at each Walmart only 20 people fall in love with Metazoo and they see our exclusive blister pack in the aisle, that's going to have a tremendous impact on the fan base and the community.
Yeah, and when I first
Sure.
got exposed
Retail
to
is
this
a
game
huge
from
deal.
you guys a number of months ago, one of the things that I thought was so cool about it is the fact that you did base the game on characters that are part of people's lives. They're part of folklore.
I just got here. What's going on? I think I got a host from Pack and everything. If a lot of people are just coming in, I've spent the entire 2 hours of this live stream talking about Metazoo and where it started and how it's imploding currently at the moment. Everything is going wrong for the trading card game of Metazoo, and I'm trying to explain why. It's been a huge story, and it got sparked up by this random guy coming into my store the other day and like trying to shill me on it.
These aren't just a whole new.
It was something I was aware from the start, from the Kickstarter after it got done launching, but it's completely just been off the radar, right?
Characters that no one's ever heard of before that you've created. You've based characters around cryptids, around these stories from the past, and obviously Mothman.
I don't own a
kind of
store.
central,
I work at a
character
store
in the game, but you've got a lot of these different characters from different parts of the country.
So, learning from this interview, the big thing I want you to take away is that this is the extent of what Mike speaks. Mike doesn't talk much more out throughout the interview. Steve Aoki starts to talk about a lot, and there's a lot of things that he says right out the bat that is super concerning.
And in the US, it's growing to be a fan favorite as well.
Listen,
we don't have a
listen
Loch Ness
closely.
Monster yet, right?
No, not yet.
We haven't gotten into that region, but that is
Exactly.
Listen closely to when Mike starts to talk about getting Steve on the team and what his role is.
So eventually we'll do like what Mike's talking about, yokai, the yokai island. That'll be all Japanese cryptids. So
And then-
we'll do that whole world. And then obviously we'll go to Europe, and then Loch Ness Monster will be a big chase there. So it's just, we got to think of how many cryptids there are around the world throughout the history of
We'll just
human
watch it for a little bit, guys.
civilization,
It makes a
of
lot
what
of sense.
People
Trust me.
imagine to see and draw on the cave walls to tell stories to their kids, and their kids tell their stories to their kids. And I mean, there's just so much history. It's like opening up a dusty book and kind of like going through the pages and going, oh my god, this is what people used to believe, like witches and all this kind of like fun like kind of folklore history. So yeah, I love it because I just get right into it. It's like Mike always like talks about some of these the conferences that he goes to. He just went to a cryptid conference and people are just like, they're not even there for Metazoo. They're there because they're like obsessed on Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Obsessed, like Bigfoot exists, guys. I swear his foot's this big, and I saw him in the bushes behind my house. Like, it's like
They'll have plasters of his footprint, and they'll be like, "This is a real footprint from Bigfoot." And it's like, I guess they'll be like, "Oh, and now Metazoo World has taken it in and reimagined."
Reason why people have latched onto the game so much.
Sorry, I'm gonna find it.
And
I really believed in this whole vision.
some of the dealers at that show. Did you ever expect it to grow?
So the big question that Sports Cards Investor asks, and it sets Steve off on this, I don't know, this tangent seems to come out of nowhere, but he says, did you ever expect it to be as big as it was? Did you ever expect it to just explode out the gate?
This way, either of you.
Steve?
Yeah, I actually did. Because I got in pretty early.
Listen. This is the biggest. If there's anything in the last hour and 45 minutes that you guys listen to this.
I was tracking.
Listen to the way Steve talks about the card game.
I really believed in this whole vision, like the fact that this is a literal gold mine IP. It's just an IP that no one's actually exploited and created. I mean, basically, Metazoo is the whole universe of cryptids, right? And when I jumped in with Mike, my vision as well is to expand as far wide as possible. Mike understands TCG. He's been growing it. He understands how it works, what the community wants, and it's clear that the secondary market is so abundant and so rich, and it's a very healthy community, very healthy marketplace for Metazoo that it's going to constantly grow. The biggest con, I'd say, is the fact that there just isn't a product for a lot of these kids that can't get it, which is why Walmart really solves that problem. So happy to hear about that, just for all the people that can't get Metazoo, because it's become more on the collecting side, more on the investing side than the game side.
Just keep listening.
That's where Walmart will fix that.
Yep.
But yeah, I really saw that this was going to really grow, in not in a linear way, but it's going to move in a much faster trajectory. And for me, when I think about IPs, when I invest in something, I also look at it like when I also create a company, why people follow my company. You have to have a rich roadmap. You have to have an offering that you're constantly giving to your community, and you have to take care of the secondary market. You have to make sure secondary market is rich and fulfilled, and it's being done. And we have so much in, not just clearly, we have so much of a roadmap in the physical, as far as all these sets and drops and promos that we're doing. The Dimmock promo, which is like happening right now, with a Dimmock t-shirt and the Dimmock promo card, the Dimmock Metazoo drop. But getting into NFTs, we have a long roadmap in the NFTs. So like side and side, we're going to be living in both worlds, the metaverse and the IRL physical space. So it's just exciting, it's just really exciting, and we're constantly, me and Mike talk literally every day.
And for you, Steve, you've been a big collector of sports cards and other trading card games.
That's the big thing that I want you to take away from this. He goes on to say later in the game he doesn't know much about the TCG in general. That's the big divide. And that's why I feel bad for Michael Waddell. I feel Michael Waddell's idea, the vision of an IP that is an umbrella of every cryptid from different parts of the world and stuff like that. This whole vision he had of bringing them all together under a single card game to play and have fun with has been hijacked by Steve Aoki as well as other people in the Crypto Bros. Steve is the entire mastermind behind all of the NFTs related to Metazoo, and you can tell by all of everything that has been put out for it as well. Let me go to the Metazoo page here, and if we go to the tokens and NFTs that have been released, these are the ones that were originally released that really didn't do anything too bad. Once you go down a little bit in the year, you have Steve Aoki x Gal Yosef 2021, an exclusive one-of-one Mothman NFT. It's a one-of-one where you get 100 booster boxes of Nightfall, which if you value them at 65 retail each, essentially a pallet would be maybe like 6,500. So that would be the base value of your card, but you get a one-of-one promo card as well as this big fucking thing. I still don't understand NFTs to this day. I probably never will. But the big start is where you start to see the cracks at the seam is the one-of-one promotional physical card that is tied to non-fungible tokens. Something that wasn't present in these first run of NFTs. Now you get to the point where you're crossing over. And this is where I think that Waddell's original vision of a card game that everybody can enjoy has evolved into an IP that is now larger than anything he can imagine, and as Steve put it, an endless gold mine that is meant to be exploited. Does that make sense? Does everybody know what I'm saying right now? Steve, from the very beginning, his first interview that we watched together, he said, NFTs, I'm not going to get into them. I like the idea that if it's something people want, they can have it. And he was so ready to partner with all these people like Topps, partner with anybody that's ready to like Rudy, Alpha Investments. He was ready to partner with him right away to get that out. He was ready to partner with Steve Aoki on the side of NFTs, all for the purpose of getting the name of Metazoo out there. The unexpected consequence of that was, of course, having people that don't believe in NFTs, a huge majority of people, feel alienated from the card game that started as a humble Kickstarter. So Mike had the right idea, being a businessman from Goldman Sachs. Not a businessman, he was a data analyst, very important. A lot of people like to tie that he was a Goldman Sachs greedy guy. But I think he was just a guy that had a project done in COVID, and it got hijacked. So Steve Aoki has been responsible for all the NFTs, right? What's the problem with the NFTs? The problem with the NFTs is that it's basically any other NFT, right? There's already a whole bunch of problems with NFTs in it, inherently and stuff. But the big problem with that is the one-of-one card NFTs. And that has been all but confirmed moving forward for the newest NFTs that are meant to be minted, is that you will get exclusive trading cards that are tied to your non-fungible token. That's the exact opposite of the way it should be. It's a physical asset from the card game, and it made more sense that the cards were worth more when they were just the cards, if that makes sense. But now you have specific cards that are out of the reach of your typical consumer because they are locked behind such a foreign concept to many people. A lot of people still don't understand NFTs to this day. I don't fully understand them to this day. A lot of people don't want to try to understand what the NFTs do. So since if you're making it such a core part of your trading card game, you're going to instantly alienate anybody that doesn't have any interest in it. So this has all been happening recently. All these NFTs that have been minted recently tied to one-of-one trading cards and stuff like that is all as of, I want to say, like the last 3 months. It's been on the roadmap since day one, but now it's all starting to come fruition with the partnership with Steve Aoki. And that's not to say Steve Aoki's a bad guy. He probably does, I think he does a whole bunch with charity and everything like that, which you can't diss anybody on that, right? The last that I knew him, the first time that I knew anything about Steve Aoki is the TCG Player partnership that they did with him, where they released Pokemon. Let me see if I can find it. This is recent. Yeah. So this is Steve Aoki's vault on TCG Player. If you go to his vault, he sells a whole bunch of slabs at it was for a certain amount of time. He was selling slabs for a stupid premium just because it's Steve Aoki. That was the only time I actually heard anything about him. But it's safe to say that I don't think Steve Waddell even has a full understanding or the extent of all the NFTs and what they could do. And Steve has been fully responsible for backing that entire part, which is fine. He's obviously the man to do it. He's done everything himself before, but as for caring for and fostering the trading card game, as you saw, rather than classifying it as just a TCG, what it originally was meant to be, it's become so much more. So we come back to the question of what is Metazoo? Metazoo is no longer just a card game humbly built up from a Kickstarter. It is an entire IP that umbrellas all cryptids from across the world. And you can even hear that from the early stages of the interview. That's Mike's vision. He wants to bring Metazoo to the world through plushes, through interactive stuff like that, just stuff to surround you in the world of Metazoo. He had this vision from the start of it being much more than a card game. But to support the card game and to get all these money to see his vision go through of competitive play with all these exorbitant set items and stuff like that, he had to get funding from somewhere else. And the amount of people that he had to work with, it was bound to be that some of the people that he's partnered with were going to be bad apples working for him. And I think Steve is going to be the main pointer for all of that. I think Steve has done everything for the NFT so far and is the forefront. And rather than Michael Waddell being the forefront for all the negative press that all the NFTs are getting, I think Steve should be the one that's primarily attributed for it. Right. So that's what I learned from here. We'll watch a little bit more
that
from this.
type of thing.
Man's ruined the dude's dream. And that's the funny thing, Kevin, the way you put that. I don't think he did. It's hard to say. I think Mike Waddell made the mistakes on his own, but he made the mistakes to be able to see his dream reach an entire new level. And obviously money speaks. And the way to make money is partnering with these extremely powerful people and stuff. But you partner with the wrong one. What happened now? The NFTs crash? Nothing. Metazoo, it's just, what is it now? Who is it for? That's the main question that I want to wrap up with. But that's the thing. It's like, did Mike give away his dream to see it grow? And I don't think so. I think he just made a wrong decision on somebody to partner with. And it cost him. It cost his reputation. Seems like Steve Aoki bought enough shares just to take over what he wants and does what he IP. That's exactly what I believe happened. That's exactly what I believe happened word for word. You can just hear from the way he talks about it. He says, I recognize from the start, it's a gold mine IP that hasn't been exploited. Legitimate quote from Steve. It is something that hasn't been exploited. And that's great. You found it. But the problem is, Steve doesn't know how to play the card game. I don't think Steve has ever touched the card game. As you said, he said it in passing. Steve knows about the card game. He's all involved with that. He's doing that. Steve doesn't give a shit about the card game. He's interested in building the IP, the thought that all of these cryptids can be under one umbrella, and building it and trying to build a brand off of it. So what is Metazoo? What is Metazoo? Is it a card game that humbly started off of Kickstarter and has reached these meteoric levels of popularity through its own merit? Or is it an IP that is simply all the cryptids put under one, that is a brand trying to be built? It's a whole bunch of auxiliary stuff that's based off of the card game. But I think the card game itself is under hot water. You can hear a lot about Mike talk about what he expects for the brand too. And a lot of the questions that a lot of people have, and it's one that I'm sure most of you have had from the start. What makes these cards so appealing? Yu-Gi-Oh! Has an IP tied to it from kids that we watch, you know? Pokemon, same thing. We watched it as a kid. We're all familiar with the characters. Sports cards are tied to sports teams and stuff like that. What's Metazoo got going for it? It's the cryptids, right? No, it's not the cryptids, I don't think. I don't think that's the only thing. I don't know what it is, actually. And I don't know what it is. But Mike describes the main thing when people ask him, and you hear a lot about it. Mike does a lot of interviews with Alpha Investments, and Rudy ended up putting out to his Patreons. He said, if you guys have questions for Mr. Waddell, ask them to me. I'm going to sit down with him. A couple hours, we're going to go over everything. He asks tons of questions to Mike Waddell from the Patreon. And the majority of the ones from the Alpha Investments channel and the Patreon tied to it are all investment-based. That's to be expected because that's what Rudy does. But you can see Mike is not the guy behind that. Mike just wants his game to be good. Mike loves to talk about the fourth wall effects and making the game as best as it can be. He had a vision originally from it to have people under one convention hall utilizing the surroundings that he brought himself to life. But a lot of the questions that get asked from Alpha Investments are, what's keeping the value of the cards 10 years down the line? Who's to say my Kickstarter box that I spent $2,000 on is not going to be worth zero in years? What's the big future plan? And for Mike, back then, and he says it, and I think it's dumb, he says a novel, or like a visual novel, or a movie. What? What? I don't think the IP that Metazoo, even though it's pulling all these NFTs and stuff, I don't think it's popular enough to create a fucking movie or a visual novel that buoys the price and like the popularity of the brand, and it's supposed to be everything that's supported on top of it. It doesn't make sense. It's a very loose thing, but you could tell that Mike just wants the best for his game. And I believe Steve, even though he is able to supply the financial aspect of it with NFTs and everything big, it has cost Mike Waddell his reputation as a trading card game enthusiast and a man trying to make it happen. Where's the trading card game now? Why is everything not worth money? Is the game fun to play? There's been more drama. There's been more shit that's happening. And it's why the TCG part of it itself. We already established that Metazoo is more than the trading card game. Originally started as just a trading card game itself. It has become way more than that. But the one thing that Michael Waddell has put his entire life into, or in the entire last 2 years into, is in jeopardy because all the other aspects, even though they're perceivably booming, the card game itself is on the decline. What's going on? This is as early as last year. There's been some drama that's come up that has put the entire collector market of all the speculative aspects of the cards themselves into jeopardy. So this is Alan the Kraken. He's another content creator for Metazoo. He's not big, 387. Like I said, there's maybe 4,000 people total in the entire Metazoo global card game like scene total. That's it. So I guess this is already a pretty big one, right? There came something the other day. This guy, Alan the Kraken, got a message from somebody anonymously. And it was this guy talking to somebody from Alibaba. And the first thing that he gets is a very cryptic message, excuse me. Hey, Alan, got a minute for something juicy? Alan's like, yeah, toss it to me. And he gets sent this picture. If you can't tell what this picture is, it's not blown up. But this picture is a uncut, there's no cards on the front. It's a foil sheet. Just a foil sheet that cards get printed on. But the thing is about this card, about this picture in particular that's very special, is this is not the first time that anybody in the Metazoo scene has seen this foil sheet. This is the foil sheet that that Michael Waddell shared originally when the first set of Metazoo was in production. This is what the cards were printed on. These Kickstarter cards that are so elusive and rare, this is what they were printed on. So this is a guy, he's sending Alan all this stuff and saying like, hey, I got the picture. And then here's him talking to somebody from Alibaba. Talking to somebody from Alibaba to get custom proxies printed. Not anything bad, Anybody can get proxies printed for a card game that they enjoy if they want to get cards they see. So this guy messaged one of these people from Japan for Alibaba and said, hey, you guys print any Metazoo cards or any like proxies? I'm looking to get proxies made. So what happened was these guys sent samples. That uncut sheet was a sample that they had that originally was also passed to Michael Waddell to show like this is what the foiling will look like. And then on top of that, these guys sent as samples to the guy to show like this is the type of foiling we can do. These cards are not just regular Metazoo cards. These are the first edition Cryptid Nation Kickstarter prints, as well as, if you look behind there, the sample cards from the original Kickstarter. The 1/100s. Who's to say this video is old? But these cards look eerily good. They look really, really good. Almost indistinguishable from the originals. That's important. So these guys, they show off these ones that the guy says this is the type of foiling we can do it from, these are the cards we can make. This guy excited. He says, I want those. I want that exact star foiling pattern that is on those Kickstarter cards, right?
Dude was like, yeah.
They decline it. They say no, whatever. But the big thing about this is it sent a wave through people. They said, those look too good to be fakes. How do those look so good? So it turned into, where did the original Kickstarter cards from, right? And again, even if we go back to the original interview with Mike Waddell, this is one of the first questions that get asked. Who is your printer for these original Kickstarter cards? Mike responds, I'm under an NDA. I cannot tell you. Turns out Mike's not under an NDA. He just had to keep this secret because it is way too easy to replicate. So the thing is this leak came out of these cards looking eerily, really good. And this Alan guy reaches out to Mike from the Metazoo page. Already know there's bad things when you have the creator of the game trying to be PR well and do damage control. So he says, hey man, I don't expect you to answer this. Is there anywhere on this? It's a Discord thing, he says. Actually, Spo. Hold on, let me find it. Yeah, here it is, bro. Look at this. This is more about people getting banned unjustly from everything. Hold on, let me find it. There's a message in here that I read, and it's from the Metazoo games, And Alan actually says, hey man, I don't expect you to respond to this, but I was curious if you could tell me the original printer of the Metazoo cards when they first came out. Remember, Mike said he's on an NDA, he can't tell anybody. Well, in this video here, these guys that this guy messaged just casually to get these proxies made were so ready to make these proxies like look almost exactly like these Metazoo cards that it became concerning. So Mike actually just straight up told Alan. He said, hey, yeah, man, this is exactly the guys that I got done to make the cards for the Kickstarter. Or that make the cards currently, right? Or something like that. It was not this shop here that we're looking at, the one that this Pinkerton guy has been messaging. It was not this one. It was a different one. However, it was in the same city in China, and they were using the same exact production equipment to make the original Metazoo cards as they do with the counterfeits that they were then, if they are counterfeits. So instantly, red flags are going off in people's heads. These two factories are so close to each other, like who's to say they aren't the same business, right? The main thing that people had gripes with is this one that Pinkerton is sending now. And as you can see with like the little Bulbasaur up here, he had a really good picture of it. This Bulbasaur and stuff here. This shop that this guy was messaging to get these proxies from is a known counterfeiter for Magic the Gathering, Pokemon cards, and other TCGs. A known counterfeit shop. And now the thing is it's expected that this known counterfeiter was in charge of printing the original Kickstarter cards. And what's bad about that? What's bad about that? When you give someone the original images, they're the ones solely printing for the cards. So the whole thing is between these two eerily close places that use the exact same production methods, why do they have the original artwork, the original images of the Metazoo cards in the supposedly rarest forms? So what's come from my analysis of it is that Michael wasn't under an NDA for who printed the original cards. He wanted to keep it secret so other people could not replicate them from going to the original purchaser. There's obviously a huge moral dilemma, or like there's obviously a lot of red flags to giving a known counterfeiter your original print run of your cards. Who's to say these counterfeiters don't go out of business 5 years from now and then say, fuck it, all of these Metazoo cards that we originally printed and kept stacks of OG ones, let's get rid of them. As Alan said it, the guy literally told him, these guys are sitting on millions of dollars of Metazoo cards because they are able to one-to-one replicate the entire look perfectly because they have the original images. So when this news broke, an entire exodus of people selling their original sample and OG Kickstarter cards hit eBay. People were offing them because now with this information out, you cannot be sure if you have authentic cards. The main thing that spread a lot of red flags is like the original people here, they were very ready to sell him Metazoo cards once he asked. And then also, they immediately flipped it around and said, I'm not able to tell you if I made Metazoo cards or not. And then they flipped it around again and said, I actually got confirmation that I can tell you that despite my NDA, I do not make Metazoo cards. It was all fishy, and if you guys want to watch this video, it's awful. It's terrible. So now people have no trust in the entire backbone of the collectible aspect of the Metazoo cards. You can't trust them anymore because if this was the original printer, they are perfectly capable of printing exact replicas that are indistinguishable. And the only time you will tell if they are a fake one is if 100 of these sample cards, remember there's 100 of them, if there's ever more than 100 of them printed and graded. Keyword graded. You will never know. So there's a lot of unsurety in it, and the card game, the collectible backbone that it was built upon, is now in jeopardy. People are worried about it. It's bad. And it really, really sucks for the people that were back from the Kickstart from the start trying to enjoy the game itself. Who plays Metazoo? Who is buying Metazoo? And it seems just from all the results The only people buying Metazoo are the people that still believe it is a speculative aspect. Who's that? I don't think anybody anymore. I don't see anybody buying it. I don't see anybody playing it. And it's such a shame because you have people like this. The Meta Bros, bro. It's the saddest thing, bro. This is the only channel I could find dedicated to Metazoo gameplay. The only one. I can't find Metazoo gameplay anywhere else. These guys, they have some videos on Channel Fireball. That's the only other channel, is Channel Fireball, that has videos on how to play. But it's these guys. It's the Meta Bros. And as you can see, they post all the time, all these different gameplay, bros. And that you can tell, bro. You just watch. They're excited. They genuinely like the game. They genuinely like it. And it's so sad to see that nobody plays it. 99 episodes in, by the way. Coming up on the 100th. Congratulations, guys. That's actually a huge milestone to keep doing something for so long. Especially with such a small audience actually keeping track of it. So, the people that were originally from the start of the Kickstarter that just wanted to enjoy the game have been completely alienated of the IP that they've grown off of. Metazoo is no longer a card game. It's no longer just a card game. It's hard to... I wouldn't even bother to advertise it, as Mike and Steve said. I wouldn't advertise it as a card game anymore. It's just simply an IP that encompasses all the cryptids in a gimmicky arc style that will find as many ways as they can to profit. Such a sad thing to see, because I think Mike had a very big vision for the game, and it still might be something that comes to fruition just because of all the funding that the game has gotten. Securing those verticals has cost Michael his dream, or has cost the reputation of his card game that he built it on. It's the saddest thing in the world, bro. And for a guy that's, to be fair, also, I mean, the way Michael behaves, it's not professional and stuff like that. It's very bad. But you kind of have to like feel bad for him. If you own a Discord server, and rather than people being excited about new mechanics or new things on the horizon for your game, you're just constantly bombarded about people asking, what are you going to do to make sure the money I spent on your game lasts? Rather than, what are you going to do to make sure I enjoy the game that I put my money into? Everybody that is a part of the Metazoo community now is expecting returns off of it, and it's something that will not be happening, or is starting to crumble at the seams. Right. That's everything that I had for discussion. I think I got the most parts of it done. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? Am I right or am I wrong? And it seems to be more that they keep like appealing to these collectible aspects. They just released a reserve list, which was something that Alpha Investments pushed super hard into trying to pry information out of Michael from. If you watch those earlier interviews, he talked a lot about reserve list. Are there cards that are never going to be reprinted and stuff like that? And they just released last month a reserve list of cards that will never be reprinted. In defense of Metazoo, it makes sense the cards that they chose not to reprint. You know, cards from the original set with their original artwork. And like promotional cards and stuff like that. That wouldn't make sense, like Target promotional cards to reprint. It makes sense. But you can see where what once was a game that had a huge vision of surrounding the player in it is slowly starting to decline. The card game aspect of it. Super sad. Also, I can't figure this out, but this is on this website in particular tier. It says 1 in 3 wilderness boxes will be an NFT box. I can't find any information on what that is. I don't know what an NFT box is. I don't know what that is. And that seems really dumb too. Imagine being a guy that purchased a Metazoo booster box because you play the card game and then saying, yo, bro, you want an NFT box. And I go, I don't want it. I just want the box. I just want the cards, bro. I don't want the NFT box. Fuck that. So yeah, I don't know, man. It's kind of sad, bro. And all the drama that's imploding in on itself, all the LGSs that are getting frustrated and stuff that are leaving the game or that are frustrated with all the NFT stuff. Will it matter? Will it matter? I'm curious. Cool. Right. I think that's everything I got, right? I think that's everything I wanted to do. I wanted to really bring you guys everything that I talked about in the last 2 hours. I feel like was really important for the overall discussion to understand. And for people that haven't come in or understand anything about Metazoo, hopefully I did a good enough job explaining where it started and where it is now. Quite interesting, honestly. Quite sad. Yeah. In the end of it, I've you know what? At the end of it, I was so against it. I actually, you know what? I missed an important part of it. What sparked all this in the first place, right? What sparked all this, right? Why are you talking about Metazoo, right? There's a guy that came into my local card shop that I was working. I told this earlier, but I didn't actually tell the full story. The guy came in, and there's a type of demographic of people you can tell that come into a card shop when you work there long enough. People that you could tell like they're not really Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, or Magic fans. They seem like sports cards people. The sports cards people, anybody that actually sees them, you know it's a certain demographic. This guy seemed like the type, but he came in and he was seemingly nice guy. We were shooting it up. You know, we're talking. He's looking at all the Pokemon cards, asking me to see condition. Very particular about condition for some reason. Oh, you know, little white dots on the back of the card, bro. Yeah, I don't want it. Very particular, whatever. But then he drops a bombshell on me. He says, man, I see you guys don't have any Metazoo here. What's the deal with that? And I said, yeah, it's just something we didn't get into, you know. You don't really have the scene for it. Really don't have the people that are into it. And he started going off. It was actually what the little thread that I put together here too. He was fully pilled. I could tell this guy was on that train. He thought that Metazoo was the next big shit. And you know what he kept saying? He kept saying, man, yeah, if you guys do get on it, it's huge. However, you're 3 sets late to the jump. You guys are already behind. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, I don't know, man. It seems like it's like all Fugazi. Like, I don't get it, bro. Like, what's the draw to it? And he's like, it's all cryptids and everything like that, blah, blah. They've done these are all quotes from him too. They've done everything right that all the card games have stopped, like first edition boxes coming back and all these chase cards in the boxes and stuff like that. And I'm like, that's great, man. I'm like, that's cool. And then I hit him with the question that it sparked this whole thing. I said, how's the gameplay? I said, I've heard the fourth wall effects are a little iffy and stuff. I heard it's not a fun game to play. He went deadpan on me. He said, well, you probably have to have somebody explain it to you, but I've heard it's pretty fun. He had never played the game. It was obvious. He had never touched the actual game aspect of it. He was only in there for the fact that it's a collectible and an investor. That was it. He chewed my ear off for like another hour. It was miserable to listen to. I walked away and I let Ethan take him for a little bit. I couldn't handle it anymore. But he was talking about all like the things that they did with Topps and all of his precious sports cards people that he worked with before. How Metazoo's doing a lot of partnership with specifically sports cards brands, by the way, or like sports cards like printers. And so he was chewing my ear off with all that stuff, but he couldn't tell me why he enjoyed the IP. I was trying to ask him. I was like, man, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, Magic the Gathering. It's all these things we grew up on as kids. It's a huge IP that backs it, man. Like recognizable by most anyone. I said, sure, the cryptids are like that, but Metazoo itself is not an IP that you can grow off of. He didn't get that. He didn't want to hear it. He was fully pilled on it. That's what sparked this whole thing. As I always knew the cards had money behind them. I never knew why, and I still don't know why. Yep. So yeah, I've come to appreciate Michael's vision that he had from Metazoo from the start. The vision of having a card game immerse people in a world where, you know, the cryptids are supposed to walk amongst you. You're also supposed to be able to play in the world of cryptids. It was a, what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word I'm looking for? It was a grandiose idea. It was a great idea. And he made it happen. But at what cost? Cool. That's everything, guys. That's everything I had to talk about with Metazoo today. Fun discussion. I hope you guys had fun. I know a lot of you maybe don't understand what it was or anything or don't really care about it, but I hope, like, for the last 2.5 hours, I hope I gave you guys a good enough story to, like, walk away with something, you know? The counterfeit cards is also really bad. Like, Yeah. The counterfeit cards especially, like there's a right way to do it. What's an IP? An IP is intellectual property. So like Yu-Gi-Oh itself is its own IP. Not just the Yu-Gi-Oh trading card game, but everything that is under Yu-Gi-Oh is Yu-Gi-Oh itself is the IP. So you could buy like a Yu-Gi-Oh plush or something like that, but the Yu-Gi-Oh itself is the IP, the intellectual property. Metazoo doesn't have that. They don't have an IP that's built on anything yet. Yeah, there's a right way to handle the exclusive cards, like the Kickstarter cards that I was telling about that are now in jeopardy. And the way that actually that happened is Rudy did something with that. Rudy's been a part of Flesh and Blood since it has come out too. And Flesh and Blood has also Metazoo. They release exclusive alpha investment cards, Rudy individual promotional cards, which I think is a dumb idea too. But the way that Rudy took it is he said, you can buy these promotional cards or get them from Flesh and Blood. Any of the ones that don't sell, I'm burning them. And he even made a video on it, actually. Hold on. Probably won't come up. I can find it. It's very recent.
I guess let's do it.
As you can see, I do watch a lot of Rudy. Where is it? Anybody got a link to the video? Can anybody help? There's like specifically a video of him burning all the leftover promos that didn't sell. And that's the thing is like these leftover Metazoo promos, they're not burned. They're literally in existence in the hands of a known counterfeiter. I can't find it. Anybody got any questions? Hopefully, I mean, with all this research, I'd hate for it to go to waste. If somebody could, like, ask me stuff that they didn't understand, and I could explain it. Yo, Paul Clifton, I didn't actually notice that. I got my girlfriend an optimal playmat. She loved it. My man. I appreciate it, dude. Are you going to make a video on this? I don't know yet. I was thinking about it, but I'd like to get the information in more of a digestible form rather than, like, a 2-hour VOD. There was a lot to talk about, but I feel like I did go on tangents a little bit. I feel like I could do better to make it a cohesive story if I do it. My only question was, how the fuck did you let that guy talk for that long without telling him you just didn't care? Retail. You ever work retail, you know what I'm doing. How'd you find all this information and what spark made you dive deep into this? Like I said, the spark was that guy that came in. And it was something I already was familiar with. I already knew about like the release of it and why it was big. That's all I knew about it. And how did I find all this information? I actually started doing the research myself from people on Twitter that pointed me in the right direction. Somebody linked me that video about the Kodak guy leaving Metazoo, and he was the one original guy that I was telling back. So I watched his video, and then it kind of just stemmed off into a whole bunch of videos that I ended up watching. I didn't get around to the sports card video with Steve Aoki to put it all together until literally like it was at least 6 hours into research. Just on everything else, on all the other drama going around. It didn't start to make sense that none of the NFT stuff was Michael's doing until I actually watched that video with Steve Aoki. Is this the burning you're talking about? This is the one. This is the one. Yep. These are all of Rudy's Gem Keeper cards that were originally distributed by his Patreon, specifically from Flesh and Blood. But like this is like the way these exclusive serialed or like really rare cards that have a finite amount should be treated. Like if you have spares of this that don't get sold or are kept for to stop to help out something that maybe went wrong in production or distribution or something like that. You have to have a couple on hand, of course, to fulfill those needs of customers that maybe didn't get theirs. But after that's all done, they should be destroyed. That keeps the integrity of the collectible market in check there. But like that's the thing is like now that the Metazoo community knows that all of these original cards that originally were under NDA from a printer are actually completely accessible through a known counterfeiter, it does not sit well with a lot of people. I don't know for sure if anybody has gotten their hands on any of those counterfeit cards, but the fact that they exist out there in a form that you can get them from somebody still is bad. I think anybody can realize that. This stream is really good. Deep dive, edit into a video, be a perfect explainer. It's like, do I edit this or do I like try to film another project though? That's the thing with it. So I was going to actually make the decision to try to find a Mothman from the original first printing, not the Kickstarter, but the original first printing of Cryptid Nation when they got it to an actual Americanized printer, I think. So you can't have that problem of counterfeiting. I was going to actually try to find one of those. If you go on, we can even look at here. Yeah, as you can see, that this is where all the value of everything is like hedged upon, is these Kickstarter holo cards. $1,000 for the Mothman. That's standard too. I've looked at Facebook groups and stuff trying to find them. As you can see, that's all, it's just Kickstarter. That even surprises me too now that I'm looking at it. There's only like 3 Kickstarter cards that hold any sort of value, and then everything plummets. Rudy. Yep. What quality are the fake cards? Are we talking upper deck quality fake? No, we're not talking upper deck quality fake. We're talking indistinguishable to the original card because these printers have access to these original images. I think Mike, when he was building up his Kickstarter and maybe getting the printer first, he sent it to a printer from Alibaba to do it, to make his vision come true with Kickstarter. And now people are starting to find that same person that made the original Kickstarter cards. And it's a known counterfeiter, so obviously there's a moral ambiguity with that, to allowing somebody that doesn't give a shit about other card game IPs and willing to create these fakes. If they have the access to print real authentic cards, who's to say they aren't going to do it for their own benefit? That's the problem that a lot of people are seeing with this. Looks crazy good on the fakes, as it should have. It looks exact. The thing that, I'm not a Metazoo player. I don't know. I never hold the cards originally. But the people that were saying that the look on the cards from the video and the cards that they own in the Kickstarter are indistinguishable. It's the same printer. How much did it cost to back it originally? $10,000 was the original backing, and it made it to $18,000. Which, if you want things to be considered, that's very humble. If I was Mike, I feel like my dream just made it. I feel sorry for the creator. I do too, to a degree. And then it's like the thing is like, he made his vision happen by pulling financial benefit from other people and partnering with all these different people. But at what cost? Confirm your email address? Doxed. I ain't never doing that. Bro, the amount of cards I bought off a TCG player, could you imagine if this was still a fake account or something like that? Like, I'd be a little bit concerned. Nah. Fascinating. I'm glad. I know this is probably all worthless. Like, this probably even might not even make it outside the stream that we just did. But I'm glad I did all this research because I learned a lot from it. It made me really excited to finally, like, I assumably crack the code on everything that's going on with the kind of like the hype around Metazoo. And is it actually hype or what's going on with it? I still don't want to try a tournament because I think the game's too confusing. And as for the majority of the cards, I don't like the artwork of it. Like I said, I do like the Mothman, though. I think it looks pretty cool. But it is what it is. Nice. If anybody wants something to look at, if anybody wants to like try to like look at some of the research, I'm going to link this down in here. I think this is not made by somebody on the Metazoo team, but I think this is made by someone just in the community. And you can really tell they enjoy it too. They put a whole bunch of information just based on everything, bro. Any information that you could possibly want is on this website. Made by Caster Society. That's I'm pretty sure that's like what they call their player base. Caster Society is like Road to the King for this game. Yeah. So it's genuinely somebody that's just very involved in the game. They want it to succeed, right? That's the type of people you need in your community. It's the type of people you need. Right. That's everything, guys. That's everything I got for today, I think. I was going to play a little bit today, but I don't think so. I think I'm going to log off. I'll be on tomorrow. Oh my God, bro. Could you imagine? I literally forgot to plug this at the beginning of stream. Tomorrow, big day. Big day. Tomorrow at 7, I'm actually playing Castle Crashers, one of the best Xbox arcade games back in the day. I'm playing it with MBT, Coder, and Danny, bro. We're all teaming up, and we're going to be running through the Castle Crashers story. It's going to be so fun, bro. I just literally made a tweet on how good the soundtrack was, and then it just ended up into this. So I'm so excited, actually, it's going to happen. That's going to be fun. So you guys definitely want to be a part of that. It's going to be fun. Right. If anybody is actually part of the Metazoo community and ends up watching this VOD or something like that and wants to reach out and maybe shine some more light on stuff that I didn't understand or I didn't touch on, I'd love that. I'd love that. Unfortunately, like I said, with an actual cap of 4,000 people just literally into the game max, I think it's going to be pretty tight to find somebody that knows that kind of information. But yeah, I'm willing to be enlightened still. I'm willing to learn.